team of the SAPS, Mchunu is now seeking permission to return to active party work. At the same time, the ANC in Johannesburg is grappling with its own internal turmoil, with regional leaders reportedly moving to recall Mayor Dada Morero amid a bitter leadership dispute. You may think there's no linkage to those stories, but actually it is about what the ANC is dealing with at the national level. One leader seeking to make a comeback and one leader possibly on his way out if the regional leadership has its way. The developments, both of them, raise questions for the governing party about political accountability and the management of factional power struggles. So what we will do is weave them together nicely and just talk about what the implications are for the ANC in both instances. What is the implication of allowing Senzo Mchunu back into party political work? And there's a clear distinction, party political work as opposed to a decision that may or may not be made by President Cyril Ramaphosa about his suitability to continue to serve in the national executive in the cabinet. We'll speak to political analyst Sandile Swana at 7:10 to unpack what these parallel crises mean for the ANC. Crises, if you think about it, if Senzo Mchunu's return presents something of a conundrum for the ANC, as well as what to do with Mayor Dada Morero. It's always been that dynamic that, in fact, it's hardly surprising, is it? Many analysts and pundits said it very early on when Loyiso Masuku was elected regional chairperson of the ANC in December last year. And then there was that tension about how that conference was conducted. Many pundits were predicting that this will not end well. It will not end with both bulls in the kraal, so to speak. So it seems we are reaching a point of reckoning with that situation in the city of Johannesburg, certainly within its ANC leadership. Sandile Swana will make sense of all of it for us at 7:10. The country's fuel security is under the spotlight as the war in the Middle East sends shockwaves through global oil markets. With shipping routes around the Strait of Hormuz under threat and prices climbing above $100 a barrel, economists are warning that the country's dependence on imported crude could expose it to serious supply disruptions. Several refinery closures over the past few years have already reduced the country's domestic processing capacity, leaving the economy vulnerable to international energy shocks. If the conflict escalates further, the consequences could ripple through everything from transport costs to food prices. So there are two messages coming through from there. There's a message of concern that says the Strait of Hormuz, which carries about 20% of oil exports, global oil exports, being disrupted as it is with the conflict that's happening in the Gulf region. That is going to definitely affect us. That's the one school of thought. The second school of thought says, yes, we will be affected like everyone else, but it will not be to the scale that many people expect, simply because we've diversified our crude oil imports. I saw a statement coming through that says actually our imports, a good portion of them comes from West Africa, Nigeria, and other parts of the African continent that are not affected by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz or disruption thereof by the conflict. So we'll speak to Professor Vali Padayachi, power and energy expert and former Eskom executive, to just get a sense of what to expect over the coming days as far as the fuel supply of the country is concerned. Lastly, let me highlight this story for you. Church and state on a collision course. Religious leaders in KwaZulu-Natal pushing back against what they say is creeping state interference in the country's churches. In fact, it's not just confined to KwaZulu-Natal, but the latest bit of protest took place in KwaZulu-Natal, where thousands of congregants marched through the streets of Durban to protest the work of the CRL Commission's Section 22 committee. We've covered this story a couple of months ago when it was first announced that there would be this Section 22 committee, and it is examining ethical oversight and possible self-regulation mechanisms in the religious sector. Supporters of the march say government has no right to dictate how churches operate or how pastors lead congregations, while the commission argues that the reforms are necessary to protect worshippers from abuse and exploitation. The clash raises deeper questions about where constitutional religious freedoms end and public accountability begins. So at 10 to 7 this morning, we are scheduled to speak to Pastor Mfariseni Mukuba, who is the chairperson of the South African Church Defenders, who have been at the forefront of the march that took place in Durban. Strong, formidable, primed and ready is the Morning Brief team this morning. And Musa has all your news updates at the top and at the bottom of every hour. Zaikan will recap the weekend's sporting action and brief you on off-the-field developments in your favorite sporting code. Rob Byrne is watching the highways and the byways and will make sure that you're the first to know should there be any snarl-ups on your route this morning. Melissa Buta will complete the picture for you with the Morning Brief in brief. And Ndauleng Lechela is always right on the money with your business, economics and market updates across the 3 hours. And lastly, Sipho Mantula will lift and highlight some of the key developments on the rest of the African continent with his Africa update coming up at about 20 to 7 this morning. Your calls, please put those through on 086 000 2032, 086 000 2032, or your WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107. With that said, then, let's get into it. The first hour of the Morning Brief on this Monday starts now.
So you thought you were building a business in this economy, but day by day, somehow it grew. You kept going when the freezer didn't freeze, the bucket didn't budge, and the bank balance barely blinked. So you thought you were building a business. You weren't. It was building you. Because this isn't just what you do anymore. It's who you are. And you don't trust just anybody to protect it. Chat to your broker about Old Mutual Insure Business Insurance. Protect what built you. Old Mutual Insure Limited is a licensed FSP and non-life insurer.
This February, fall in love with friendships that feel like family. Old bonds, new beginnings, and chapters that remind us why love, in all its forms, matters. The story comes full circle in The Best Man, the final chapters, where love, loyalty, and life collide one last time. Because some stories stay with you long after the final scene. The Best Man, the final chapters, weeknights 7 p.m. only on S3 of the Love.
Beat the Monday blues at the Chief's Boma restaurant at the Indaba Hotel. Enjoy Mukhodu Mondays with a sundowner on the deck, lively marimba music, authentic traditional poikis, and juicy steaks from the Shisanyama Grill. All for 395 Rand per person. Space is limited.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the Morning Brief.
Started with Melissa Put, who is in studio with the Morning Brief in brief. Melissa, good morning. Let's start with the news and developments coming out of the investigation into the killing of Witness D.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. So police have arrested a suspect believed to have shot and killed Marius van der Merwe, who is also known as Witness D. Shortly after he testified at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, van der Merwe was shot outside of his home in Brakpan in December. The arrest made in Johannesburg is the first major breakthrough by the Special Police Task Team created to investigate cases linked to the commission. The team was established by National Police Commissioner Fani Masemula on instruction from President Cyril Ramaphosa. Police say they obtained strong evidence and secured a J50 arrest warrant before making the arrest. Investigators have also seized the vehicle believed to have been used in the murder and are conducting search and seizure operations at several addresses linked to the suspect. The suspect is expected to appear in the Brakpan Magistrate Court today, so we will see how that goes.
Yeah, as is the case with every litigation, Melissa, The one side will state their case and then the other will respond, and then there'll be a replication. That has now happened in the case of South Africa versus Israel at the ICJ.
Yes, indeed. So the South African government is reviewing Israel's response in its genocide case concerning the Gaza Strip filed at the International Court of Justice. Israel was accused of violating international law and committing genocide against Palestinians. Israel submitted its response after receiving 2 deadline extensions. Government spokesperson Vincent Mangwenya said South Africa will now decide whether to file further written submissions or move directly to oral hearings. The case comes as the humanitarian crisis in Gaza continues, with Antonio Guterres warning of severe shortages of food, medical supplies, and widespread infrastructure damage. President Cyril Ramaphosa said the case highlights the importance of international law and global institutions like the United Nations. Meanwhile, the United States, Netherlands, and Iceland have filed declarations to intervene in the proceedings.
And we are from the ANC. One loaf, one family. One loaf is more than enough.
No.
That didn't end well.
Not at all. So Deputy Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment Minister Bernice Swartz has issued an unconditional apology after a viral video showed volunteers distributing bread while chanting "One loaf, one family" and referencing the African National Congress. The footage sparked public outrage, with critics saying the distribution of food to poor communities appeared politically motivated and undermined people's dignity. Swartz says the campaign was part of a food drive organized by the Benny Swartz Foundation, not a political initiative, and expressed regret for the pain caused. The ANC distanced itself from the incident, with spokesperson Mahlengu Bengu saying the activity was not authorized by the party and that internal steps have been taken to reprimand those involved. Swartz reiterated that she rejects the use of food aid as a political campaign tool. So that really didn't go well at all.
But does she reject it though?
You know,
the use of food aid as a political tool. Does she reject it though?
It's one of those things you learn the hard way.
When she clearly says we are from the ANC and we are here to give you.
And you're wearing the attire as well. You know,
one
it
loaf,
doesn't
one
look
family.
good.
Yeah, you know you have a problem when the ANC says, "Hey, we have nothing to do with it. leave us out of it." All right, thank you, Melissa, for that. That's Melissa Puta with the morning brief in brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
All right, on the weather front, there are no impact-based warnings, and there's only 2 advisories. The one is very hot to extremely hot and uncomfortable conditions are expected over the Namakwa district in the Northern Cape as well as the Western Cape. Heat wave conditions with persistently high temperatures are expected in places over the western parts of Namakwa district as well as in places in the West Coast, Cape Winelands and Central Karoo districts of the Western Cape, extending into the interior parts of the Eastern Cape. The rest of your weather looks like this. Pretoria, Johannesburg and Vereeniging will be cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers. Pretoria starts at a minimum of 16 and ends at a maximum of 23. Johannesburg 14 to 22, Vereeniging 14 to 22. Mbombela will have morning fog patches, otherwise cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, 17 to 25. Polokwane, cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, 16 to 24. Mahikeng will have morning fog, otherwise cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, 15 to 28. Vryburg will have morning fog, otherwise cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 14 to 29. Bloemfontein will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 14 to 30. Kimberley will be fine, becoming partly cloudy with isolated afternoon showers and thunder showers, 15 to 31. Uppington will be fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 18 to 34. Cape Town, partly cloudy, 23 to 34. George will be cloudy with morning fog patches, as well as isolated showers and rain from the afternoon, with a minimum of 19 and a maximum of 32. Gqeberha will be cloudy with morning fog patches and isolated showers and rain from late afternoon, 20 to 28, Gugompo City, formerly East London, will be partly cloudy, 21 to 28. Durban, partly cloudy, 23 to 29. Richards Bay, partly cloudy, 21 to 32. And lastly, Pietermaritzburg will have morning fog, otherwise partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 17 to 30.
This Human Rights Month, we commemorate a significant milestone, the Bill of Rights at 30, making human dignity real. For 3 decades, South Africa's constitution has been a beacon of equality, freedom and justice for all. Yet dignity is not just written in our constitution, it must be lived, protected and upheld every single day. Join SAFM as we unpack the issues that matter, elevate voices driving change, and reflect on the progress we've made while confronting the work that still lies ahead. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
24 minutes after 6, the war between Israel and Iran is now entering a dangerous third week, with both countries exchanging increasingly destructive missile and drone strikes that are reverberating far beyond the battlefield. Israeli forces say they are conducting large-scale attacks on military targets deep inside western Iraq, while Tehran continues launching retaliatory missiles not only towards Israel but also towards United States military bases in the region. The conflict is now rattling global energy markets as disruptions around the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important oil shipping routes, push prices above the psychologically significant $100 a barrel mark. Meanwhile, the U.S. President Donald Trump has signaled that the war may still intensify, warning that further strikes could target Iran's key oil export hub of Karg Island, which has already been struck, by the way, and also while insisting that any potential deal with Tehran would require better terms. Let's speak to Anthony van Nieuwkerk, who is a professor of international and diplomacy studies at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs. Good morning to you, Prof, and thank you for your time. We are entering a third week of this conflict, United States, Israel, and Iran, that has now engulfed the Gulf region, the broader Gulf region. There's a bit of confusion about whether or not Iran sought negotiations towards a truce. They've outright denied that they have, while the U.S. president has said that they have sought that. Are we any clearer as to where this conflict is headed?
Sure. Good morning, Thulasizwe. Yes, it's indeed a global crisis facing not only the Middle East, but I think every country that needs fuel, oil and gas, including South Africa, and most of the continent, by the way. So yes, it's indeed an urgent crisis, and people are looking forward to some kind of an intervention to bring peace, a mediation of some sort. But it's a tragedy that nobody's on the horizon to be able to offer that, including the UN, most of Europe, and who knows where that will come from. In the meantime, you know, when the war started, there were 3 scenarios which we entertained. The first one was a quick win by the Americans, a bit like Vladimir Putin, who thought that he could invade Ukraine and declare victory in a week or so. And so clearly this has not happened. The second scenario was that within 4 weeks or so, Iran would have been exhausted and defeated, and America would be victorious. This is also not happening. In fact, the conflict is deepening and spreading. I mean, as we speak, Israel, who's attacking Iran with America, has extended its military campaign into southern Lebanon, where Hezbollah is attacking Israel on a daily or hourly basis after the death of Ayatollah Khomeini. So we are now looking at the third scenario, Thulasizwe, which is, beyond 4 weeks, maybe 6, for the rest of April, in fact, is the expectation. And that will have, if nobody can bring a peace to the Middle East, it means that the global economy will be hurt quite badly. Secondly, that Iran will probably be flattened by the American muscle, the way that we saw Gaza being destroyed by the Israelis. And then thirdly, the region will be engulfed in a war with enormous economic consequences. The Gulf states have been known as a hub, a transit hub, logistics hub, and travelers move through there in their millions. All of that is gone now and will be for the foreseeable future. And so international travel will become more complicated as well. Even sports events, the F1 had two scheduled meetings, and that's been cancelled as well.
Yeah. There's a conversation that's amplifying, that's questioning whether the US President Donald Trump miscalculated in launching, certainly in as far as the timing for a launch of this campaign in Iran, and perhaps was buoyed by the quick successes, quote unquote successes, that he claimed in the situation in Venezuela. What's your take on that?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, to return to your very original question, I forgot to answer that properly. Iran is not saying let's negotiate. I think that's a bit of naughty miss or disinformation. In fact, I think the situation arose because of the very poor quality of the advisors around Donald Trump. So the Secretary of War, as he likes to call himself, Pete Hegseth, and Jared Kushner, and Steve Witkoff. These are the advisors and envoys that said to Donald Trump that let's preemptively strike Iran and prevent it from developing nuclear weapons, which is a big debate. Is this what the Iranians really wanted at this stage? And secondly, let's destroy or degrade their missile capability because they're a threat to the region. And there we had it. Donald Trump then deployed the entire American army and all its capabilities, and more to come, because now with the Strait of Hormuz being blocked for most ships, Donald Trump is calling on NATO, his allies, his reluctant allies in Europe, to send armies and warships to the Gulf of Hormuz to help clear the way for oil tankers to resume their duties. Of course, this has caused quite a consternation amongst the NATO members, because they said they are not interested in this war. It's not their war to start with. And Donald Trump is now, bringing trouble to the rest of the Western world.
All right. Thank you for your time and your insights this morning once again. That's Professor Anthony van Nieuwkerk, a professor of international and diplomacy studies at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs. Let's go to Ann Musa, standing by with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, the South African National Defence Force and the Police Service have held a joint media briefing in Pretoria to update the public about their collective national response to crime and serious violence in the country. President Cyril Ramaphosa has authorized the deployment of over 2,000 soldiers to areas in Gauteng, the Western and Eastern Cape, Northwest and the Free State to combat escalating gang violence and illicit mining. The suspect arrested over the weekend in connection with the killing of former Ekurhuleni Metro Police officer Marius van der Merwe is expected to appear in the Brakpan Magistrates Court east of Johannesburg today. Police also seized a vehicle believed to have been used on the day of the murder. And renewed flooding in Limpopo has led to the closure of 2 border posts between South Africa and Mozambique as heavy rain lashed the Bembe, Mopani and Waterberg districts over the weekend, causing severe flooding. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Heavy coming out of Germiston and Alberton again today on the run through towards Galulis. It's the roadworks on the N3 north at Heldene, so they've got you backed up to Rand Airport on the N3 and back to Voortrekker Road on the N12 eastbound. The run through Diepkloof, always worth checking. That's busy today. Monday volumes, packing it out between the Potch Highway and the run through Diepkloof down towards Uncle Charlie's territory. And there's an issue on the R21 this morning. Crash southbound. just by Atlas Road. That's having an impact both directions, north and south around Atlas Road. That's the head of the airport. There's some heavy traffic building up on that section of the R21, both directions. Crossing to Durban, or southern parts of KZN, in fact. Let's start there. The R102, the Umzukula River Bridge, traffic flowing on that bridge. I don't know whether it's official or whether long-suffering motorists have just decided to have a crack at it, but motorists are flowing over that Umzukula River Bridge, which takes out that rather long detour around the top of Port Shepstone. N2 North, the breakdown going up to the Gateway, that's being cleared, thankfully, for now. And Cape Town, two really big traffic light junctions out of action today. The first one is the M7, Jakes Herville R300, so both of those routes queuing up out of Mitchell's Plain. And just up the road, just north of the airport, Robert Sobukwe, Stellenbosch Arterial, 35th Avenue, another massive junction without traffic lights. Delays, all approaches around that one. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey Zai, good morning to you. It's a Monday morning. Amakhosa Jabulile.
Hey, Tulas, rightly said.
For
I
a
can.
change.
You know what? I think it's definitely brightened the mood there in the studio, judging by
There's
the
a
smile.
smile in
At
the
least,
studio. Yeah.
At least one of them is sitting there smiling.
I'll take a picture and share for the listeners to see that. Everything will go well.
Imagine.
Everything will go well technically this morning because,
You know?
the one person is happy.
Ijabulile. Yeah, absolutely. Wow, Kaizer Chiefs, you've done it. You've broken that run of 4 straight defeats with a 1-0 victory over Durban City at the FNB Stadium. So wonderful news. The result lifting Chiefs to 5th on the Premiership table with 33 points, while City dropped to 6th. Now here's Kaizer Chiefs co-coach Cedric Kaze acknowledging that his team needs to improve, though, at managing the game.
That's a good question, because I believe as well that as younger as I am, if that happens, another time I could have a heart attack. But we need to take care of the ball better. We need to understand which part of the field we are. We need to understand as well which at what time of the game we are, and I believe that we in those moments we didn't take care of the balls enough. We went into transitions, maybe an extra touch, and we lose the ball. Maybe an extra dribble instead of maybe trying to find an extra pass, and we lose the ball. And it's things that we're gonna continue to work on and to improve.
There we go. That's the Kaizer Chiefs co-coach Cedric Kaze here on the morning brief. Elsewhere, Manchester United strengthened their push for Champions League qualification with a 3-1 win over Aston Villa at Old Trafford. Meanwhile, Leeds United held Crystal Palace to a goalless draw despite playing their entire second half with 10 men. Still in the Premier League, Richarlison scored a dramatic 90th minute equaliser to earn Tottenham a 1-1 draw at Liverpool. Turning to rugby, South Africa's Blitzboks have been crowned overall HSBC 7 Series champions after defeating Fiji 10-7 to win gold at the New York tournament. Sylvan Davis was named player of the final. On to cricket, Proteas women's coach Mandla Mashimbi says his team was completely outplayed by New Zealand as they went down to the White Ferns by a massive 80 runs at the Bay Oval in Mount Maunganui.
Yeah, it was quite unfortunate to see that we didn't show up today. I think, the score doesn't reflect the ability that we have as a team. I think today we just didn't execute as well as we'd like to. But you got to give it to New Zealand. They had a plan and they executed accordingly, and that's why we were found lacking here. And yeah, you gotta give credit where it's due. I think they just outplayed us today.
And finally, athletics. Ethiopia's Fortune Tesfaye produced a sensational marathon debut to win the Barcelona Marathon in 2 hours 10.53, the second fastest time ever recorded in the women's race. Kenya's Jepkoskei Kimpimo finished second, with Zainab Yimmer third. In the men's race, Uganda's Abel Chelangat claimed victory, holding off Kenya's Patrick Mosin and Jonathan Corrier. That's your sport. We'll be running back top of the hour with more. I'm Sai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Ndauling for the first update of the week. Ndauling, let's start in China. Tell me about consumer and factory activity. What's been happening there?
Morning, Tulas. So China's economy has started the year stronger than expected, with both consumer spending and factory activity beating forecasts. Now, data shows retail sales rose 2.8% in the first 2 months of the year, helped by spending during the Lunar New Year holiday. Industrial production also surprised to the upside, climbing 6.3%, supported by resilient demand from markets like Europe and Southeast Asia. But challenges remain in the property sector. Investment in real estate development continues to contract, while home prices across major cities are still declining. Despite the encouraging start to the year, we did see officials warn that geopolitical tensions and structural issues may weigh on the economy moving ahead. And so we did see earlier this month Beijing lowering its GDP target to 4.5% to 5% for 2026.
In company news, tell me about Remgro eyeing double-digit earnings growth.
So Remgro expects a strong jump in interim earnings, but the group says its strategy is also evolving as it shifts more of its focus toward unlisted investments. The company, controlled by Johan Rupert, says headline earnings for the 6 months to December could climb by as much as 40%, supported by improved operational performances across its portfolio. Now, Remgro is an investment company, currently has exposure to JSE-listed companies like Rainbow Chicken, as well as Outsurance, unlisted entities like MediClinic. Remgro is, of course, increasingly building its exposure to private businesses rather than listed holdings. That shift means success is being measured less by movements in net asset value and more by underlying performance and value creation within the businesses it holds. Now, the group has also recently boosted its cash reserves after selling a large stake in First Rand, giving it additional firepower for future investments. And many analysts expect Remgro to either return that to shareholders, the proceeds from its sale of First Rand shares, that is, either to return it to shareholders or continue investing in unlisted companies.
All right, recap for us how we closed on Friday and how we are starting the week.
So stocks continued to slip deeper into the red on that geopolitical fallout, with U.S. markets closing last week in negative territory, but losses were marginal. That wasn't the case back home, with the JSE All-Share totally erasing those post-budget gains we saw last month. From about 128,000 points, it's now sitting, as of Friday, that is, the JSE All-Share sitting at 115,000 points. And this, of course, due to the risk-off mood. The Rand also struggling, edging closer to the 17 Rand mark to the dollar. It's sitting at 16.85 to the greenback this morning, 22.34 to the pound, and 19.29 to the euro. In commodities, oil continues to hold on to recent gains, trading above $100 a barrel on supply concerns as the Strait of Hormuz remains closed as the war in the Gulf enters week 3. And then lastly, in Asia, markets starting the day on better footing. Stocks on that front pretty mixed, with investors still, of course, keeping a close eye on the conflict out in the Middle East while digesting better than expected data out of China.
All right, Ndauling, thank you for that. We'll touch base with you in the second hour of the show, just after 7:30.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Raz Sipomantula standing by with that. Good morning to you, Raz. Let's start in Congo-Brazzaville. Voting taking place yesterday. Denis Sassou Nguesso looking for another term of office.
Refreshing morning, Thulas, and Jump Africa to the listeners, Thulas. A very important observation that we see from Congo Brazzaville. Yesterday, it was an election day, Thulas. Now it's trickling of counting of votes. The incumbent President Sassou Nguesso says he is remaining hopeful, Thulas, that the promise of victory will come. And he says that he will implement what he has promised the people of Congo Brazzaville, particularly developmental projects. And as you know, Thulas was contesting with two other opposition figures who featured in the 2016 election campaign, General Jean-Marie Michael Mukoko and Andrew Okombi Salisa. These are the guys who were behind bars at some point, Thulas, being accused for threatening internal security. The 82-year-old Thulas was facing what you might call a weak field of challengers, and will wait during this week, Thulas, whether the outcome will come in his way, but voter turnout was very low, Thulas. One thing about democracy in Africa is not all about the candidate, it's about the voters. But if you have a voter turnout, that raises a lot of issues. But let's wait and see, Thulas. As I said to you yesterday, they said there was a handful of voters. They've tried to mobilize the voters during their campaigns, but we'll wait and see what happens in the land of Denis Sassou Nguesso.
Speaking of elections, Uganda had its presidential elections in January, but the fallout from there still continues.
It is still continuing. Bobi Wine over the weekend saying that he has left the country, Thulas, through a Twitter video post. He did not divulge which location, but he said he will return at the right time. We know that there have been tensions between Bobi Wine on the Twitter streets with the son of Museveni, Muhusi Kainerugaba. They've been having many issues, calling each other names. And when you see the police have, they've not been looking after Bobi Wine, but Bobi Wine alleges and feels that he has been wanted by the government of President Museveni. As you said, it was a post-election crisis that we see after Museveni was given 71% of the vote. He has been in office since 1986, and Bobi Wine has been trying, frustrated by his followers' challenges. But now this time, Thulas, he said he has left Uganda, and he thanked those who have kept him during these difficult times in the capital city of Kampala.
And Rwanda has been one of those troop-contributing countries to the Cabo Delgado situation in Mozambique in pushing back against the jihadist elements there in that region. Now they have something to say about funding for the mission.
Thulas, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Oliver Nduhwengireha, through Twitter streets, as you know, Twitter, the diplomacy dominates lately, Thulas. Warning that they might pull out. They've been there since 2021, as you have said, Thulas. The fight has been again around the insurgents in Mozambique, in the oil-rich Cabo Delgado. They've deployed 1,000 soldiers. When you look at that mission also, you ask yourself, Thulas, as he warns around the
All right, problems this morning. I don't know what happened. Yeah, we've got you back.
Okay.
Yeah, please continue.
Okay, Thulas. Yes, I'm back. So when I say their funding from the Rwandese has not been coming from the government of Mozambique, it has come from the European Peace Facility Finance. What is said is that even when the SADC regroup under South Africa, Thulas, it says a lot about our peacekeeping mission in the region. For Rwanda to say they are watching, they are observing, Thulas, there are gases there. There are enormous reserve gases that are for French companies there. So we have to be honest. If SADC wants to be a serious role player in integration and strengthening the SADC citizens, we cannot be allowing an East Africa member state come and intervene in SADC. But we know it's not all about jihadists, like I said. I go further to say there are transactional issues there. But it is sad because the humanitarian crisis that will befall for the people of Cabo Delgado once we have an intervention peacekeeping mission pulls out when SADC has left that stage. So let's wait and see what will Rwanda do, because once foreign policy has been set, the military instruction will be followed.
Yeah. Lastly, Sipo, your historical archive. Take me to the 16th of March, 1959. One son of the soil was born on this day.
That's quite true, Tula. This man was known as TT, Tito Tatas Mboweni. He will have been 67 years, Tula. He passed away. He just transitioned 2 years ago in 2024. But the interesting about him being first Minister of Labour in 1994 during the cabinet of the late Nelson Mandela. 1998, Tula, he joins Reserve Bank as an advisor to the governor. That was crystals, meaning your money was still labeled crystals. And Tito comes in, the money is labeled Tito Mboweni, as you would call Tulas. He also served as Minister of Finance. He went into the intellectual space. The UNISA gave him an honorary professor of economics. Stellenbosch became a chancellor of Northwest University. He went to Lesotho, if we look to us, also in London. So you can see he had a very great intellectual space. He was born in Zanini, a very small town in Zanini. People know him about his famous fish that he always do. I won't label the fish on air to us, but we know that this is a man who was instrumental in many issues. President Ramaphosa tried to rebuke him several times because he was a man of his mind. He will challenge issues. He will raise issues that he cannot bankroll the SOEs for years to last. They keep on falling. How are we sustaining them? Green economy, I know he was passionate about it. In terms of how do we push the green economy. There might be issues and issues around how he perceived issues of growth and borrowing from IMF. For me, to us, is the issues that are still befalling. As you say, we are going to the third week of the war of Israel and USA and Iran, and how does it affect the African continent? Others are saying probably the Cape of Good Hope might benefit, but it will take 18 days for the goods to go through the Tulas. So it's a benefit for the continent, but the war has to end, Tulas. As you see, many conflicts are not ending. Asante sana, Tulas, as I see leading the conversation, SFM observing the anti-racism way.
Sipho, thank you for that. That's Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update for this morning.
There is no room for mistakes for the cottagers. They need victory to pull away from trouble.
Oh, yeah! He's done it again! Harry Wilson for Fulham. It's 2-1.
But the Clarets are ready to command possession, control the tempo, and spark moments of brilliance.
And Burnley are ahead. It's Bashir Humphries. Oh, what a turnaround we've seen here. Time added on, Burnley are ahead.
This is the Premier League. Don't miss out on Fulham FC versus Burnley FC on Saturday 21 March at 4:30 p.m. Live on SABC Plus and SABC 3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
This February, fall in love with the journey. No phones, no flights. Just determination, connection, and the open road. From breathtaking landscapes to unexpected challenges. Race Across the World is back. Bigger, bolder, and more emotional than ever. Because sometimes the best way to find yourself is to travel together. Race Across the World Season 4, Thursdays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Very heavy on a couple of really busy routes across Gauteng. We start on the N1 northbound towards Pretoria with a crash at Olifantsfontein Road. It didn't look like much, but it's certainly causing a big backlog from New Road heading up towards Olifantsfontein. All lanes jammed. Coming south, I guess everybody in the big volume having a look at that from John Foster down towards Olifantsfontein. That's heavy. The side road, the old Joburg Road, pretty heavily backed up. When that's backed up, you know how bad it is on the M1 because motorists just want to get out of it. So the N1 south and north under pressure. Old Joburg Road coming down from Centurion into Midrand, pretty heavy. Olifantsfontein in from Clayville, Olifants from Blue Hills, all heavily backed up through that part of town. A big crash on the R21 at Atlas Road, just north of the airport, north and southbound impacted by this. There's some very heavy traffic between the Benoni exit and Voortrekker Road, if you like, both R21 north and southbound into that scene. The traffic lights have gone down again at Midrand, Allendale and K101, such a busy junction. There was a recent fix, but it proved to be very short-lived. Durban, the Malvern side, main road at Belleville Road Bridge, or Belleville Road, that goes onto the bridge up to the M7. There's a heavy backlog. That could well be traffic light issues in that part of Malvern this morning. The highway networks around Durban, all fairly standard. The N2 perhaps coming out of the Monzamtoti up through to Prospect and perhaps busier than you would normally expect to find or would like to find it. Cape Town, misty conditions are all over, so give yourself extra time to get through. The highways are full with back to work Monday traffic volume struggling through some of that mist. There's also 3 really big traffic lights out around Cape Town. These are some of the biggest commuting routes. M7, R300, Mitchell's Plain offline. Stellenbosch Arterial, Robert Sobukwe, top of the airport, Moderdam area offline. Stellenbosch Arterial, Blackheath out at Range Road, lights off there as well. Kales River area, so all of those junctions badly affected with no traffic lights. Also the R44 heading through to Stellenbosch, busy again this morning. They had traffic light problems at Annandale last week, and it looks like they may still be offline. That traffic heading to Stellenbosch from Somerset West, very slow. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This February, love the truth, no matter how unsettling it is. They were called accidents, a slip, a fall, a tragic mistake. But what if they weren't? Fatal fall, murder or accident investigates suspicious deaths. From balconies, staircases and cliffs, where one question refuses to go away. Did someone push them? Through forensic science and haunting testimony, the truth is uncovered. Fatal fall, murder or accident. Tuesdays 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, unfair blacklisting, or an uncontested divorce, Clientele Legal offers professional legal services to all South Africans. Our plans are affordable, and you receive up to 745,000 Rand worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our nationwide legal teams are standing by to support you 24 hours a day. Plus, all plans include a 5,000 Rand bail benefit. Join today. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Bafana are preparing for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, which will be hosted by the United States of America, Canada, and Mexico from 11 June to 19 July 2026. Bafana will host 2 international friendlies against Panama on Friday 27 March in Durban at the Moses Mabhida Stadium at 7 p.m. and Tuesday 31 March in Cape Town at the DHL Stadium at 7:30 p.m. Tickets are available at Ticket Pro at 80 Rand for adults and 50 Rand for children under 12. For more details, visit safa.net and Bafana on X.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
5 minutes to 7. Thousands of church leaders, a number of church leaders and thousands of congregants have taken to the streets of Durban in what organizers say is a defense of religious freedom. But critics say it is a backlash against attempts to bring accountability to the country's religious sector. The march, organized by the South African Church Defenders, targeted the Commission for the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Cultural, Religious and Linguistic Communities, commonly known as the CRL Rights Commission, and its controversial Section 22 Committee. That committee was established to explore mechanisms for ethical oversight and self-regulation within churches after a series of high-profile abuses by religious leaders in recent years. Protesters argued that the initiative amounts to state interference in church affairs and have called for the committee to be scrapped and the commission's leadership to step aside. Let's speak to Pastor Mfariseni Mukuba, chairperson of the South African Church Defenders. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. What was the march about? What about the Section 22 committee doesn't sit right with you to the extent that you took it to the streets?
Good morning to Thulasizwe and good morning to the listeners. Yes, we took the streets because the CRL Rights Commission has come up with a Section 22 committee that amongst its function is talking about coming up with a legislative framework that will control churches, and we know that the CRL Rights Commission does not have that mandate from the Constitution. They are not really sent to come up with laws. They are sent to protect religious freedoms, religious communities. So what they are doing right now, they are stepping out of their mandate, which cannot be accepted.
But is that an accurate reflection of what the Section 22 committee seeks to do? My understanding is that the CRL Rights Commission says it's not to regulate religion and churches, but rather have some kind of accountability mechanism, some kind of peer review and self-regulation process, as opposed to coming out with an act or something legislative.
Just to tell you, their clause 2.3 on the document that is guiding the work that they are going to do speaks about coming up with a legislative framework. But the chairperson of the CRO Rights Commission deceives people in a way, because she says that this will be self-regulation. There is no self-regulation that involves a law. There is state interference. Once you talk about a law, you are talking about state involvement.
So have we reached a point where there's no possible resolution to this situation that doesn't involve the removal or stepping aside or resignation of the chairperson of the CRL Rights Commission?
We have reached that stage because when a person who's entrusted with leading such a Chapter 9 institution seems to not do what they are sent to do, it is a problem. When we find that the CRL chairperson is talking things that are blasphemous, which are like, if you hear from God, you should be taken to a psychiatric ward. When we see her driving a mandate that is not driven by what she was mandated to do by the Constitution, that is really a source of concern. So we cannot allow people to just act anyhow in our country, because really we are not a banana republic here where we cannot just do things which are not legal. She is unconstitutional. What she's doing is not legal and cannot be accepted at all.
What alternative have you put on the table as religious leaders, particularly you as the South African Church defenders, in the wake of the abuses that we are told motivated initially the investigation that took place and now this Section 22 committee? Because those were objectively, happening. We were seeing them, the abuses of people's beliefs and faiths and exploitation within the churches. So what have you put forward that you would say is the alternative to this path?
Thulasizwe, it is true that the abuses that take place in churches and religious freedom has never been a legal defense against all these things. What I can say is that the South African Church Defenders does not promote any illegality. We are saying that everybody is accountable to the laws of the country. Whether you are a pastor or you are not a pastor, you are governed by the laws of South Africa. And let the laws work. When anybody is committing any criminal activity, we are saying that we have got laws in this country. Let those laws take effect. There's failures of other state organs like the NPA, the SARS, the courts, and the Home Affairs cannot be blamed upon the churches. There is something that we have to come together as a country and fight against, not to scapegoat the church. There is so much good that is done by the church, and all these things that are happening cannot be used right now to justify something that is unconstitutional, which is regulation of churches controlling people's callings. It cannot be used to control the pastors, to interfere with the governing of churches.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time, Pastor Mfariseni Mukuba, chairperson of the South African Church Defenders. To Musa, standing by with the latest news.
OUTsurance is in the business of saving you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
In our top stories, SANDF to confront criminal elements threatening South African security without fear, and suspect arrested for witness D's murder to appear in court. Good morning. The South African National Defence Force and the South African Police Service held a joint media briefing in Pretoria yesterday to update the public about their collective national response to crime and serious violence in the country. President Cyril Ramaphosa has authorized the deployment of over 2,000 soldiers to areas in Gauteng, the Western and Eastern Cape, the Northwest and the Free State to combat escalating gang violence and illicit mining. The SANDF Chief Rudzani Mapwanya says soldiers will confront any criminal element that threatens security in the country without fear.
We've seen too much lives lost, and one life is one more than enough, and we are not going to tolerate any further escalation of any criminal activity that will take our people's lives. We are not going to allow those who do not have the right to carry arms to terrorize our people, and we'll carry those arms, and if you challenge us, we will show those criminal elements that this is the state, and we are going to enforce by any means the law of order.
The suspect arrested over the weekend in connection with the killing of former Ekurhuleni Metro Police officer Marius van der Merwe is expected to appear in the Brakpan Magistrates Court east of Johannesburg today. Police also seized a vehicle believed to have been used on the day of the murder. Van der Merwe was referred to as Witness D when he testified before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry last year. He was shot dead in the presence of his family in December. The incident happened after he testified about corruption and a covered-up murder allegedly involving senior EMPD officers. Families of apartheid-era victims have lashed out at former Presidents Thabo Mbeki and Jacob Zuma over their legal battle to remove retired Justice Sisi Khampepe from chairing the TRC Commission of Inquiry. The Foundation for Human Rights, alongside survivors and families, addressed the media in Johannesburg yesterday. They were reacting to a High Court application by Mbeki and Zuma to review the ruling that dismissed their attempts to have Justice Khampepe recused. The families have also directed their anger toward President Cyril Ramaphosa, accusing him of siding with his predecessors instead of the victims. Victims' families say the legal challenge by the former heads of state to remove the chair of the TRC Commission of Inquiry is part of a strategy to delay accountability for apartheid-era crimes. Human Settlements Minister and sister of slain anti-apartheid activist Nogutula Simelane, Tembi Simelane.
The actions themselves form part of a wider strategy to derail efforts to uncover the suppression of the TRC cases. In this regard, the families assert that there is a closing of ranks amongst the current and former heads of the state. That's our view.
Flooding in Limpopo has led to the closure of 2 border posts between South Africa and Mozambique as heavy rain lashed the Bembe, Mopani and Waterberg districts over the weekend, causing severe flooding. In January, heavy rain and flooding caused 10 billion rand in infrastructure damage in the province. BMA spokesperson Meme Mukhotsi.
Pafuri is a port of entry between South Africa and Mozambique, situated in the far northern region of the Kruger National Park. Giriondo, which is also port between South Africa and Mozambique, is an important part of the Great Limpopo Transfrontier Park, which spans across South Africa, Mozambique and Zimbabwe. There have been no injuries or damages to the infrastructure reported. Travelers who intend to access Pafuri Gate are advised to use Panda Maria Gate as an alternative access point. The BMA continues to monitor the situation closely.
And finally, U.S. President Donald Trump has issued a blunt warning to NATO that the alliance faces a very bad future if its members fail to assist in opening up the Strait of Hormuz, through which a fifth of the world's oil normally passes. His comments made in an interview with the Financial Times increases the pressure on European countries to join his war against Iran. The BBC's Greg Mackenzie reports.
Donald Trump said the US had been very sweet with NATO countries over Ukraine and they should now return the help. This, he said, should include naval assets such as minesweepers. Mr. Trump also threatened to delay his upcoming visit to China unless Beijing also sent support. Oil prices have risen again after the weekend, with the benchmark crude climbing above $100 a barrel. Prices have surged by as much as 50% since the conflict began, raising fears of a major shock to the global economy.
Recapping the top story, the South African National Defence Force and the South African Police Service have held a joint media briefing to update the public about the collective national response to crime and serious violence in the country. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
Without insurance, saving on your car insurance feels like getting the last buri roll at the office braai. 40-year-old Rafiq saves a whopping 899 Rand on his 2017 Navara 4x4. Get a quote now, and if Outsurance can't save you money, ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get savings or cash. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, rugby, the Blitzboks are crowned 7 Series champions after beating Fiji in New York. And in cricket, the Proteas have made a winning start in their T20 series against New Zealand. We'll have the details around 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Busy Monday, working your way around some major incidents. N1 North through mid-round, a crash at Olifants, Fontaine Road. Heavy backlogs from New Road. Coming south, the big backlog of traffic. Busy having a look at that as well. Crash just north of the airport on the R21. Both ways under pressure into that. Seeing this between Atlas Road and Voortrekker Road. Northbound leaving the airport's heavy. Southbound approaching the airport. Very heavy backlogging there as well. The N12, N3 option out of Alberton. Heavy this morning from Reading interchange up into the roadworks around Van Buren Road. Durban side, M7 going into Pinetown quite slow. M13 coming along from Hillcrest down to Cluth is reasonably busy. And there's a backlog leaving a Monzamtoti. N2 all jammed up towards Prospect. And M4 Southern Freeway going into Durban quite slow as well. Cape Town, no traffic lights. M7R300, that's bad coming out of Mitchell's Plain. Also just north of the airport, Robert Sobukwe, Stellenbosch Arterial, lights are off there. That's heavy. And the highway networks around Cape Town are fairly backed up this morning. Busy all the way over. It's back to work Monday. High volumes, bit of mist. Give yourself time to get through. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
7 minutes after 10 on this Monday. It's great to be in your company. Welcome to it, the second hour of the Morning Brief on SAFM 104 to 107. Among the stories we'll be covering for you within this hour, we'll start with a conversation, a political conversation, analysing 2 key moments of decision that have come for the ANC at a national level, but also at a regional level in the city of Johannesburg. The national decision has to do around what to do with the on special leave Minister of Police, Senzo Mchunu, as far as his reintegration into the activities of the ANC are concerned. We are told that he now wants to come in from the cold, where he had stepped aside from party activities. He now says, having appeared before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry and having appeared before the ad hoc committee, the time has come for him to resume political party activities. What are the implications thereof of reintegrating him despite all of these probes still being ongoing, not having come to a conclusion one way or another regarding his role in these issues that are being probed at the moment. The other point of decision has to do with what to do with the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, Mayor Dada Morero. This after we are told that the recently elected regional leadership of the ANC in the city of Johannesburg has decided that they will be taking the decision to call for a recall of Dada Morero. That is the removal from office following ANC party structures. The fallout from that elective conference in December continues, and therefore we are seeing all of this playing itself out. We are told that actually in challenging the leadership and the lodging of papers, they've come to a point where it has become untenable to have Dada Morero continue in that position of mayor of the city of Johannesburg. Political analyst Sandile Swana is on standby to speak to me about both developments in just a moment. Then after that, we turn to the conversation around name changes. Usually when we do this, we'll be talking about resistance and opposition thereto, right, to the name changes that have recently been approved and gazetted by Minister of Sport, Gayton Mackenzie. Well, this time around, we are talking about support for a name change. We saw a march taking place in Robert Sobukwe town over the weekend in support of the name change from Graaff-Reinet to Robert Sobukwe town. We'll be speaking about that to Derek Light, who is an attorney and chairperson of the Graaff-Reinet Economic Development Forum. That conversation coming up at about 7:20. Your calls, please put them through to 086 000 2032. 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes, I'll take them on 0614 104 107. Let's get into it. Let's start the second hour of the morning brief.
Rafiq, a 40-year-old Outsurance client, knows all about saving on car insurance.
Outsurance, they're actually giving something back to you. Being with them, I've saved so much money. 899. That's not small change. It's more than 50% that I saved from my previous insurer.
An incredible 899 Rand monthly saving on Rafiq's 2017 Nissan Navara 4x4. Get a quote now. SMS out to 30754. 35-year-old Zanai saves 1,180 Rand a month on her 2017 Mercedes-Benz GLA. And the out bonus she'll get?
It is close to 6,500 Rand in 3 years if I'm claim-free.
Ready to get more out? SMS out to 30754. Enjoy benefits like panic assistance, which sends the nearest medical or armed response unit to you wherever you are. Get a quote now and see how much Outsurance could save you. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Licensed insurer in FSP. TCs and information online.
Exciting news, South Africa. SABC TV Licenses has partnered with Capitec to make paying your TV license simple, affordable, and accessible. If you're a Capitec client, sign in to the app and click on Transact. Next, select Pay Bills, then click Pay At and enter your reference number to complete your payment. It's as easy as that. You'll receive instant SMS confirmation. Now you can keep your stories alive and your screens shining bright. TV licenses, pay yours, make a difference.
Thulasizwe Simelane is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SFM Radio.
16 minutes after 7, the on special leave police minister, Senzo Mchunu, is now attempting to re-enter active political life within the ANC after stepping back from party duties while facing allegations linked to corruption and interference in police operations. His spokesperson says Mchunu plans to formally write to the ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula seeking permission to resume his organizational responsibilities, arguing that he has already appeared before Parliament and the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. The allegations raised by KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi center on claims that Mchunu ordered the controversial disbandment Political Killings Task Team in late 2024. At the same time, the ANC in Johannesburg is grappling with its own power struggle after party regional leadership reportedly resolved to recall Mayor Dada Morero amid claims of two centers of power in the city. Let's turn to analysis now on what these developments mean for the ANC's internal stability and public credibility. Let's speak to political analyst Sandile Swana, who joins us now for that conversation. Good morning to you, Sandile, and thank you for your time. Let's start with the big question around Senzo Mchunu, to let him back in from the cold or not to let him in. How crucial a decision? What turns on that decision for the ANC? Mr. Swana? All right.
Sorry, what turns on that decision, first and foremost, is the consistency of how decisions are made. The Secretary General of the African National Congress last year made it clear that there are no grounds for Mchunu to step aside in terms of the step-aside rule. So nothing has changed from November until now. So from the rules of the ANC, including the step-aside rule, Mchunu has got no basis of not being at work in the NEC of the ANC. Two, Mchunu took voluntary leave to have enough time, which I think all of
from party activities, and it seems the leadership wasn't aligned with that proposal, and then later on it became something of a controversy to the extent that the decision to allow him to step back from party activities was informed by the perception that there's a cloud of controversy hanging over him that could have implications for the ANC's credibility and reputation. Can it be said that with the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry not having finally reported and made recommendations, President Ramaphosa not having made a decision one way or another around retaining him, and the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee yet to conclude its work, can it be said that that cloud has dissipated enough for the ANC to say there's actually no need for you to remain out in the cold politically?
I think the cloud is a social and public cloud out there. It doesn't line up with the rules of the ANC. In the rules of the ANC, you must be actually charged to step aside. To the extent that they've adopted that rule and are operating under that rule, Mchunu is not charged, and we have no recent information that is about to be charged even. And we know that there are people who've been listed for charging under the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, under the Zondo Commission, who've just lived their lives for decades, some of them, without a problem, and carried on and occupied very senior political positions in the ANC and also in the state. Zondo himself saw in people who were listed for further investigation and prosecution into the cabinet. He put them in there. So I don't think we should get carried away and say that there's this cloud or that cloud. The bottom line is that Mchunu has not been charged, and the rules of the African National Congress demand that he has been charged. Let me add this. The reputation of the ANC cannot be damaged. Ramaphosa is serving in office protected by the DA and others with big scandals of Pala, knowing that he was the chairman of the deployment committee. A lot of the rogues who are being charged, like Brian Mulifi and others, were put in physically into the state by him. And he continues. So you cannot damage a reputation that is damaged.
Lastly, let's turn to the question of the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, Dada Morero. We are told that there was a special regional executive committee meeting at which the ongoing disputes from the December elective conference that saw the election of Loyiso Masuku served before that REC meeting. And the decision reportedly is that the REC will be seeking a recall of the Mayor Dada Morero. What are the implications of that?
Well, from a citizen's point of view, I would almost say that this could be the fifth or sixth mayor of the ANC in terms of Dada having had 2 terms, 2 mayors died in office, or 2 or 3 mayors died in office, and so on. So the immediate implications for us as the residents and citizens is the continuation of instability. Politically, it's clear that Mashatile is gathering momentum. Masuku, we are told, is sponsored by Mashatile. And lastly, both Dada Morero and Masuku do not have a clear record of superior performance in Gauteng or in the city of Joburg. These are not people that are known for performance, and Dada has been a disaster. So we could be moving from disaster to disaster. And lastly, Mashatile is a man of, regardless of how many votes the ANC gets, all he wants is that the ANC must be in charge. So Loyiso Masuku is a person who's going to try her best to make sure that the ANC is in charge in Johannesburg.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time and your insights. That's political analyst Sandile Swana weighing in on those developments.
You are listening to The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
Proud of your networking skills? Prouder that your car is paid off? Well, with Outsurance Essential Car Insurance, you could be saving too. 63-year-old Mudisa pays only 344 Rand a month for his 2012 Chevrolet Cruze, and his claims are paid in cash within only 5 working days. Get Outsurance Essential Car Insurance today for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 Rand. SMS CAR to 43185. That's CAR to 43185. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
Big stories of the day. #The Morning Brief.
All right, let's turn to this story now. The renaming of Graaff-Reinet to Robert Sobukwe Town has reignited a familiar and often emotional debate in the country about history and the reflection of the various streams of our past. Supporters of the change, the name changed, marched through the streets this past weekend, declaring that the decision approved by the Sports, Arts and Culture Minister, Gayton Mackenzie, is final and honors one of the country's most important liberation leaders. Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe was founding president of the Pan-Africanist Congress, the PAC, and is remembered for leading the anti-pass campaign of 1960 and enduring years of isolation, imprisonment under apartheid. But the decision has sharply divided the town, with opponents arguing that the historic name Graaff-Reinet should be preserved and warning that the renaming process ignored the views of many residents. So let's speak to Derek Light, who is attorney and chairperson of the Graaff-Reinet Economic Development Forum. Good morning to you. Thank you for your time. On which side of this argument do you land?
I'm retained as an attorney to oppose the name change on behalf of the Graaff-Reinet Economic Development Forum, which is representative of all the civic organizations in town.
So what are the grounds on which you are opposing, that your clients are opposing this name change?
We're opposing both on procedure, but also on the merits of the proposed name change. The process itself was initiated in 2023. It was fatally flawed both in respect of procedure and the consultation process. Even the gazetted notice published by the minister did not comply with the lawful requirements of fair administrative process, and in the circumstances we are of the view that the whole process was invalid. But we also focus on the merits of the matter because it's an important issue, and we don't want to be pulled into the political debate because we focus on the cultural significance of the town's name. There's a principle that we have adopted in this country from UN resolutions, which says that geographical names are part of our historical, cultural, and linguistic heritage of the nation, that is, which it is more desirable to preserve than to destroy. And there are a number of considerations when government decides on a name change, and one of them is that you must have regard to the wishes of the local population. You must have regard to the historical origin of the name, and there are considerations of transformation or redress, but also the UN resolutions. And we, as the forum, had research done, independent research done, which has been peer-reviewed and which has a 95% accuracy, which determined that, amongst others, the name had evolved from its colonial origin, and it was not offensive to the vast majority of our people. 83.6% of our population, of all population groups, white, colored, and black, were opposed to the name change. The research further showed that 32% of our black population, which constitutes 27% of our entire population, were for the name change and 68% against it. The vast majority of colored persons were against it, and the vast majority of white persons were against it. We have filed a complaint in terms of the Act with the Minister for his consideration, and he must now decide whether he's going to uphold these complaints or not. Almost 22,000 other people, individuals, have filed complaints with the Minister, which constitutes the bulk of our adult population.
So in terms of propriety of, honoring a person of significance from the town, please do the comparison for me. Honoring, my understanding is this name came from a Dutch Cape Colony governor, Cornelis Jacob van der Graaff, and the second part coming from the name of his wife, Graaff-Reinet, versus honoring Robert Sobukwe, one of the giants and icons of the liberation struggle, hailing from that town.
Yes. And I must tell you this, we recognize Robert Sobukwe as an iconic figure, and we're proud that he came from our town. And there are principles for geographical features being named after notable individuals. But the process must fortify community identity and spirit and promote cultural diversity. There are a number of ways in which you can honor notable individuals with buildings and streets and educational institutions and the like. There's a principle in the resolutions of the UN, and it's adopted by our country, that generally speaking, towns' names should not be named after individuals because they are potentially divisive. You'll know that the iconic figure that was Robert Sobukwe was also a controversial person.
But with due respect, Mr. Light, that doesn't advance your case at all, because already, as I said, it is named after individuals, two different individuals, one a Dutch Cape Colony governor and the other his wife.
Yes, excepting it's an existing name, and the name itself, the research shows, has evolved from its colonial origin and has become opaque. It's not offensive to the vast majority of the people. It has gained validation across various cultural groups, and to propose the name change to Sobukwe, as iconic as he was, is divisive. There's been a reaction from the community, and the law says we must have regard to the wishes of the local population. A name change must not be offensive. It must not be discriminatory as regards race, politics, affiliation, and other social factors. So you can't ignore the fact that almost 84% of our entire population are opposed to the name change.
Yeah, I don't know about it not being offensive. I've heard arguments. I don't purport that these are the dominant arguments, but certainly there have been arguments that have been presented that say The name as it was, Graaff-Reinet, is a monument
Yes.
to subjugation and conquest, and it's a reminder, constant reminder to people of African of the African population of that conquest. So I don't know to what extent we can say that it wasn't offensive.
Well, the research and the opinion of the public, including black people, shows that it's not. People have identified with the name. It's no longer linked to its colonial origin, and that is what the research shows. But it's also shown by the massive response to this proposed name change. It will, the name change will appeal to a very small portion of our population. It appeals to 32% of 27%. So it's a very small portion of our population that want the name change.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. That's Derek Light, who is attorney and chairperson of the Graaff-Reinet Economic Development Forum. Let's go to Ann Musa, standing by with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, a member of the Gauteng Organised Crime Unit, previously referred to as Witness F, returns to the Matlanga Commission this morning to continue with cross-examination. Sergeant Fani Nkosi could not proceed with his testimony last month after he was hospitalized. The South African National Defence Force and the South African Police Service have held a joint media briefing to update the public about their collective national response to crime and serious violence in the country. President Cyril Ramaphosa has authorized the deployment of over 2,000 soldiers to areas in Gauteng, the Western and Eastern Cape, the Northwest and the Free State to combat escalating gang violence and illicit mining. And the crisis in the Middle East has led to further travel disruptions and flight cancellations. Dubai International Airport has temporarily suspended its operations after a drone incident sparked a fire at one of the airport's fuel tanks. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. Volumes and flows around the Gauteng region looking pretty heavy this morning. It is back to work Monday. It always tends to peak on a Monday. The N1, for example, Soweto round to Rivonia. Traffic all the way through. The Mike 1 from Boysons all the way up to Grayston Drive. The N3 from Albert and Germiston all the way through Bedfordview, right through to Modderfontein Road. Just gives you an idea of how much traffic we're looking at this morning. Also the R21 to and from the airport. Very heavy, worth avoiding this. A crash between Atlas Road and Voortrekker Road. Now it's equally backed up north and southbound. So northbound from the R24 highway or coming out of the airport all the way up to Atlas Road, southbound from the Benoni off-ramp all the way down through to Voortrekker. Major delays to and from the airport there. Also the N14 queuing up on the Krugersdorp highway towards Brockfontein interchange, and Monday volumes under a bit of pressure on the N1 southbound from Montana all the way down to about Rigel Avenue. It's a very busy run on that N1 south. But also the N14 up to Eupheus Road, looking quite busy if you're into Pretoria. Durban, Ottawa, busy. R102, no traffic lights this morning in that central Ottawa area, causing some extra delays. A crash between Cowies Hill and Westville on the M13, causing some additional problems. And the N2 from Monzamtoti heading up to Prospecton, lingering a queue longer than you might expect coming off the south coast. It is quite a busy Monday on the northbound run there. Stellenbosch, no traffic lights on the R44 entering central Stellenbosch via De Boerd, so that's slow on the way up from Somerset West side this morning. And two big traffic lights out, Robert Sobukwe Delaray and Robert Sobukwe Stellenbosch Arterial 35th Avenue. If you're just north of the airport in that Modderdam area, traffic gridlocking right through that region on multiple routes because of those faults. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you, Zai. We are the champs, aren't we? The Blitzbokke being crowned Sevens Series champions.
Good morning, Thulas. Yeah, not a bad trip to New York. I mean, we've come back with the series title, and a few happy South African fans there in Times Square might still be celebrating. We beat Fiji at 10-7 to win gold at the New York tournament, and we had Captain Impie Visser playing in his 50th tournament, setting up the opening try for Gino Cupido before Tristan Lades added another. And it's wonderful to also see that Selwyn Davids was named player of the final. Let's go to cricket. The Proteas made a winning start to their T20 series against New Zealand, securing a comfortable 7-wicket victory in Mount Maunganui. Stand-in captain Keshav Maharaj obviously looking pretty impressed with the figures from teenage fast bowler Ngubani Mokoena. He impressed with figures of 3 for 26, while fellow newcomer Connor Esterhazen anchored the chase with an unbeaten 45. Meanwhile, the Proteas women coach Mandla Mashimbi says his side will need to regroup quickly after their 80-run defeat to New Zealand in the opening T20 international at Mount Maunganui. Mashimbi believes the team still has the quality to bounce back. They'll move to Hamilton for the second match tomorrow.
No, it's just a mindset thing, really. So we need to still stay brave, and we need to keep a positive mindset. We still have 4 games to play. In Hamilton could be our day, could be our type of wicket as well. Our bowlers could thrive on those conditions. So, we just have to make sure that from a mindset point of view, we on it all the time, and we just need to show up as well.
Soccer, Kaizer Chiefs finally returned to winning ways, beating Durban City 1-0 at the FNB Stadium to end a 4-match winless streak in the Betway Premiership. But despite the much-needed victory, Chiefs' technical team continue to face criticism over frequent changes to the starting lineup. Co-coach Cedric Kaze says injuries and adjustments have played a role.
It's every team needs consistency to get better results, and it's something that maybe people don't talk enough. But I think that we have been very, very, very unfortunate in terms of injuries and suspensions that have crippled the team and didn't allow us to have better runs into our lineup, and I believe that if we don't have those much of injuries, we would have been more consistent than we were.
And finally, tennis. Italy's Yannick Sinner claimed the ATP Masters 1000 title at Indian Wells after defeating Daniel Medvedev in a hard-fought final in California. We'll be serving up more sport, top of the hour. For the morning brief, I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's turn to Ndauling Lechela for the second update of the morning. Good morning to you, Ndauling. Let's start with what National Treasury is saying about the two-port retirement system. Some review, changes, adaptations are in the offing.
That seems like the case to us, with Treasury saying it is considering possible tweaks to the two-part retirement system, including limited access to the portion of savings that is currently locked away. Now, Treasury officials told Parliament that discussions on potential reforms could begin later this year, with proposals focusing on allowing withdrawals from the retirement pot only in cases of severe financial distress. The two-part system, of course, introduced in 2024, allows retirement fund members to withdraw a portion of their savings annually from a designated savings pot, while the bulk of their funds remain preserved for retirement. Now, early data suggests most withdrawals are relatively small and used to cover short-term financial pressures. Administrators like Alex Forbes says demand for access to savings has picked up again at the start of the new tax year, highlighting ongoing liquidity pressures for many households.
And we cover these issues around problematic gambling all the time on this show. Yeah. But if anyone has a dashboard view, the back end of it all, it would be the banks, wouldn't it?
That's right, Thulas. And the lenders are increasingly flagging gambling as a potential credit risk as betting activity continues to surge. At ABSA, CEO Kenny Fihla says gambling behavior is now one of the indicators the bank looks at when assessing a client's financial health. In a Business Day article, the lender notes that higher gambling spend often correlates with rising debt levels and a greater risk of customers falling behind on repayments. Other lenders say while no single transaction determines whether credit is granted, spending patterns, including gambling, form part of broader affordability checks. Research from Old Mutual also suggests gambling is becoming less recreational, with many South Africans turning to it in an attempt to cover everyday expenses. Of course, we know of that glaring figure that's constantly brought up when we talk about gambling. Data from National Gambling Board showing that South Africans spent around 1.5 trillion rands on gambling in the 2024-25 financial year.
Lastly, Dowling, how are the markets looking at this hour?
So starting in Asia, things seem to be somewhat looking up, or with stocks on that front mixed as traders digested Chinese economic data as well as ongoing hostilities in the Gulf, which have continued to keep oil prices elevated. Crude still trading above $100 a barrel. Investors are weighing the inflationary pressures from high energy costs that or taking place while we await the Fed's next rate decision. Policymakers over in the US are meeting this week with a decision set to be announced on Wednesday. As we await that, US futures surprisingly in the green today. Coming back home, the mood is less optimistic, with the JSE in a corrective phase, which is a short to medium term decline of 10% or more from its most recent peak. It's dropped from post-budget highs of 128,000 points to below 115,000 at Friday's close. Lastly, in currency markets, a firmer dollar continues to weigh on the rand. It is trading at 16.86 to the greenback, 22.34 to the pound, and 19.28 to the euro.
All right, Dowling, thank you for that. We'll talk to you once again just after 8:30.
This February, love staying informed. As your day winds down and the evening begins, Primetime News moves to a new home. Weekdays at 6 p.m. The stories that matter, the context you trust, the news that connects you to South Africa and the world. Because loving what you watch also means trusting what you hear. Primetime News is weeknights at 8 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Join Proudly South African for the 14th annual Buy Local Summit and Expo, taking place on the 16th and the 17th of March 2026 at the Sandton Convention Center. This premier Buy Local event brings together business leaders, entrepreneurs, and consumers to champion locally made products and services. Expect a vibrant exhibition, matchmaking between entrepreneurs and major corporates, insightful panel discussions, and a business solutions hub. This year's theme is Localization, a critical imperative to the economy. Come and explore how supporting local businesses creates jobs and economic resilience. Attendance is free. Register now at proudlysa.co.za or via link in socials. Loved here, made here.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let's take some of your calls and WhatsApp voice notes. In fact, I want to start with some of the voice notes that have been coming through, reflecting on the stories that we have covered this morning. Someone this morning, for example, wants to talk about the controversy around Bernice Swartz and that mantra of one family, one loaf of bread, and how that has landed her in a spot of bother where she's now had to apologize.
Good morning, Thulasizwe and the team. South Africans must reject one love, one family apology by the deputy minister. We are sick and tired of apologies. It's high time that the politicians take the voters seriously. The ANC must be punished by the voters in the upcoming elections, Thulas. Swetisinyolo in Mafefe Limpopo.
All right,
Asante
Sana. Thank you for that. To be fair to the ANC, they were quick to distance themselves from that campaign and they said, this is not sanctioned. We don't know. She's on a frolic of her own. But I get the point that you're making. What is it about leadership within the organization that makes a leader, a national leader, to believe that that was okay to do that? I think I get the point that you are making. In fact, the ANC under the spotlight in many ways. Senzo Mchunu and this whole idea of his mooted return to active party participation in the leadership activities of the ANC is one of those topics that are dominating this morning.
Good morning, SAFM. It's Duelo in Kimberley. On Senzo Mchunu, I'm saying the old man is just being hasty. He should enjoy his money. He's getting a salary for doing absolutely nothing. He will return after the president has given us the findings of the Makanga Commission. Siyabonga.
Good morning, Tulas and listeners. It's Shawan from Durban. If the ANC accepts Mchunu back after his testimony at the Madlanga Commission, they're going to lose support in the local government elections, especially because the dude doesn't believe immediately means now.
Good morning to us. President Ramaphosa is such a weak leader, a weak, indecisive leader. That must be said. How, under his name, how can he allow a person like Mchunu to even consider coming back into the fold of the African National Congress? They must make a decision about this guy now, as in yesterday. If he wants, if wants some bit of respect and legacy, how can they allow Mchunu to bully them like this? Is Mchunu trying to do what Zuma did, trying to evade prison by taking the highest office in the land? No, man, Ramaphosa must deal with Mchunu after everything that we heard from the commissions.
Yeah.
Is he even considering it? Suka. Soviet Kingdom Star.
Soviet, thank you for that. In fairness, it's not a presidential decision, certainly as far as the ANC part of it is concerned. The one to do with cabinet is absolutely his decision. Mchunu is in office because President Ramaphosa wants him in office. Otherwise, that would have changed long ago. The political one on the ANC is a bit more complex, right? Because it's based on the rules. And as Sandile Swana was pointing out, Mchunu has not been charged with an offense as things stand. I remember that there were people who were saying that they're laying charges, but I don't know how far that has gone. Has it led to anything where you are formally charged now, as opposed to the laying of a complaint with the police? Also, this is a decision that then comes down to the various structures. You may, as a leader, want him out to say, no, continue to step aside, but the reading may be different from other parts of the leadership of the party, such that your view may not necessarily end up prevailing. So, yeah, there are those complexities. One or two of you want to talk about the conversation we had with Pastor Mukuba and the concerns that they have around the CRL Rights Commission's Section 22 committee.
Hi, Thulasizwe. This is Musa from Watuguza. I'm a bit surprised that churches choose to call regulation interference. I find that disingenuous. All NGOs are regulated. And I think that churches too need to submit to some sort of regulation. They cannot be immune. Also, we need to enforce accountability. There is public money involved in churches. There is also the question of the conduct by some pastors, which really violates human rights, basic human rights. And churches need to accept it. I thank you, Thulasizwe.
Their role and their mandate, Cyril, was to make sure that those fake pastors who come here and end up, and even those that are South African, some of them, abuse congregants and do all sorts of things, are weeded out. But not to a point where they want to all regulate everything. Aye.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Busy Monday as we turn our attention back to the working week, particularly coming out of Pretoria. The M1 just very busy between Montana. As you're on ramp at Siafaga Makata, you'll see headlights, or you'll see tail lights at least down in front of you. And it really it goes from Montana all the way down to the last of the breakdowns around Rigel, and then a crash just after that. So 2 breakdowns, 1 collision, all of that unfolding between Atterbury and Rigel and pushing that queue back into Montana. The N14 onto the M1 heavy today. Pretoria West exit up through Brockfontein up towards the John Foster exit. Very heavy around the airport on the R21. Big crash there this morning. Looks like it's probably with a fatality. It's been there a long time. R21 north at Atlas Road. So big queue starting around Barbara Road on the R24, around Griffiths Road on the R21 north, and then all the way up the 21 towards Atlas Road. Southbound from the Benoni exit down through Atlas towards Four-Tracker Road towards the airport entrance. Pretty heavily backed up as well. Also crash on the Mike 1 north at Empire. So that's heavy coming through from Gold Reef City and Ormonde, and then more queues up to Grayston Drive. The lights are off on Grayston at the Mike 1 yet again. Isn't that just a perennial problem? Off, fixed up, and just on a repeating cycle for the longest time. Durban's M2 North, pretty stacked from the M7 up to Westwood Mall. In Under Road, coming out of Newlands, is slow down through Parlock towards the N2 highway. And traffic light problems in Ottawa this morning. That's why you're stuck on the R102 coming out of Verulam, heading south. Quite heavy without the assistance of traffic lights there. Also Cape Town, big traffic lights out. Robert Sobukwe, 35th Avenue, Robert Sobukwe, Delaray, that whole Moderdam area under pressure. M5 very busy as well from Plumstead all the way through to Kuba, get a change. And a lot of traffic on the N1 inbound this morning from Kraaifontein, Eustenburg, just slow to Brackenfell, and then from Belleville all the way through to Kuba, get a change. High volumes on the N1 into Cape Town. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Investing shouldn't feel risky. It should give you security and good returns. Earn up to 7.25% interest per annum with an ABSA Cash Invest Tracker for an investment of 100,000 rands or more. Your capital is guaranteed with immediate access to your funds. That's minimum risk, maximum benefit. ABSA Private Banking customers can invest from just R1. Open via the ABSA Banking app, a branch, a private banker, or 0860 111 515. Your story matters. ABSA is an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
This February, love the truth, no matter how unsettling it is. They were called accidents, a slip, a fall, a tragic mistake. But what if they weren't? Fatal fall, murder or accident investigates suspicious deaths from balconies, staircases and cliffs, where one question refuses to go away. Did someone push them? Through forensic science and haunting testimony, the truth is uncovered. Fatal fall, murder or accident. Tuesdays 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Exciting news, South Africa. SABC TV Licenses has partnered with Capitec to make paying your TV license simple, affordable and accessible. If you're a Capitec client, sign in to the app and click on Transact. Next, select Pay Bills, then click Pay At and enter your reference number to complete your payment. It's as easy as that. You'll receive instant SMS confirmation. Now you can keep your stories alive and your screens shining bright. TV licenses, pay yours, make a difference.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Straight to the calls we go. Let me start with Rendani in Pretoria. Good morning.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. How are you?
I'm well. Please go ahead, Randani.
No, man, I'm very puzzled by the guest whom you had in regard to those name changes and so on and so forth. You know why am I saying so? Is because when the colonialist arrives, they find that place having its own name. The question is, what was the original name of Graaff-Reinet before it is proposed to be changed to Lutuli? You get my point?
Yes, I hear you.
So they are also citing the fact or issues of cultural and diversity issues. Didn't they know when they changed the name that it will impact us, indigenous people, before now? Because in many times I often hear those whoever expect debates citing the fact that no, man, we mustn't change the name. We have to work. We have to focus on the issue of service delivery. But the colonialists didn't come and focus on issue of service delivery. They come and change everything. You see how important is the name. It's for the identity. We are African. We're supposed to have our own African name. And all in all, Thulas, we are also focusing. We are, I must say, wasting time. Also, not wasting time per se. I'm saying, how about also proposing changing the geographic name called South Africa to its own original name? What was the name of South Africa before called South Africa?
All right.
Thank you, Thulas.
Rendani, thank you for that. That's Rendani out in Pretoria. Let me go to Ntlantla in KZN. Is it Ntlantla, my brother, or another Ntlantla in KZN?
Thulas, my brother.
Good morning, my brother.
Morning.
Very good. Please go ahead.
My brother, Thulas, I think I must remind the nation about the candidate Ramaphosa is trying to attempt, he says. When we are going to allow the state to work with the private sector, it's like we are allowing to our government to violate the constitution, my brother.
How so?
Because not so long ago, Ramaphosa was speaking about professionalizing the public sector. Just like Chapter 10 of the Constitution says, a high standard of professional ethics must be protected and maintained. So, if we are going to allow incompetence of the government, or in fact, or people who are given them other position without proper qualification to run the country, we are going to be told that we must allow the private sector to run the country, which is wrong. Which is wrong, my brother.
But I don't think, Ntlantla, it's being proposed that the private sector will replace the civil service, professionalized civil service. The way I understand the arguments is to say that there are limitations as to what the state can do given its financial position and the fiscus. The priorities are endless, and where it is possible, partnerships, public-private partnerships should be promoted. But I don't think they're talking about a wholesale replacement or displacement of the civil service to be replaced by private sector workers.
You see, my brother, when we are being told that there's a lack of funds, I don't believe that. In contested negotiations, same words were being used. We don't have enough funds to maintain the meter, to maintain the country. It's not wrong. It's wrong. The incompetence, national party needs to run the country. Why our African brothers can't run the country? Because it's going to look like that.
All right. Ntlantla, thank you. I hear you. Let's see what other people have to say about what Ntlantla has said there. Kirk, I'll have to call you back after 8 and take your call after that. But for now, let me go to N. Musa, standing by with the latest news.
Outsurance Essential is made for older cars. Claims are paid in cash within 5 working days, and you choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43185. That's CAR to 43185.
In our top stories, Witness F returns to the Matlanga Commission for cross-examination, and SANDF to confront criminal elements threatening South African security without fear. Good morning. A member of the Gauteng Organised Crime Unit, previously referred to as Witness F, returns to the Matlanga Commission this morning to continue with cross-examination. Sergeant Fanning Nkosi could not proceed with his testimony last month after he was hospitalized. Nkosi sought to avoid testifying in person and filed a High Court application to block the reading of WhatsApp messages found on his device. Sibahle Mota reports.
Sergeant Nkosi, who's also known as Witness F, has linked suspended Deputy National Police Commissioner General Shadrack Sibia to attempted murder accused Vusumuzi Kat Matlala. He is also believed to be the link between General Sibiya and murder-accused Katiso Katie Molefe. Sergeant Nkosi has testified about how General Sibiya instructed him to invite Matlala to an event at his home in 2024. The event was also attended by suspended organized crime head Major General Richard Shibiri. Sergeant Nkosi is believed to be the middleman between high-ranking police officials and members of the alleged criminal cartel.
The South African National Defence Force and the South African Police Service have held a joint media briefing in Pretoria to update the public about the collective national response to crime and serious violence in the country. President Cyril Ramaphosa has authorized the deployment of over 2,000 soldiers to areas in Gauteng, the Western and Eastern Cape, Northwest and the Free State to combat escalating gang violence and illicit mining. SANDF Chief Rudzani Mapwanya says soldiers will confront any criminal element that threatens security in the country without fear.
We have seen too much lives lost, and one life is one more than enough, and we are not going to tolerate any further escalation of any criminal activity that will take our people's lives. We are not going to allow those who do not have the right to carry arms to terrorize our people, and we'll carry those arms, and if you challenge us, we will show those criminal elements that this is the state and we are going to enforce by any means the law of order.
The state will continue to cross-examine one of the accused in the Senzumehiwa murder trial when it resumes in the High Court in Pretoria this morning. Bongani Ntanzi is one of the 5 people charged with the killing of the former Bafana Bafana captain in October of 2014. On Friday, State Prosecutor Advocate George Baloyi revealed that communication records of a cell phone number that linked Ntanzi and a lawyer indicated that the accused had legal representation when he allegedly confessed to the crime. However, Ntanzi has denied knowledge about the lawyer, but Advocate Baloyi said that the state's evidence suggested otherwise.
The 27 communication that we have referred to between your number and Mr. Mjiako's number for the period 31 August 2020 to 28 October 2020. Mr. Mjiako's appearance for you at the Boksburg Magistrate Court on the 27th of October 2020 and 27th of November 2020. Based on that is indicative of the fact that there was a tenant-client relationship between you and Mr. Mjiako.
The legal challenge by former President Jacob Zuma and Thabo Mbeki against Justice Sisi Khampepe as a chair of the TRC Commission of Inquiry has been described as a tool to suppress the truth. Executive Director of International Truth and Justice Project, Yasmin Sukas, says the evidence already shared before the Commission indicates serious allegations around political interference and therefore raises questions whether this is about stopping the inquiry before the truth becomes known. Zuma and Mbeki's case will be heard today in the High Court in Johannesburg. Zuma has accused Justice Sisi Khampepe of bias. Suka says President Cyril Ramaphosa's recent stance is also shocking.
In the evidence already, there are really serious allegations which are emerging around the political interference. Attempts at this stage to remove the chair inevitably raise the question about whether this is about stopping the inquiry before the truth becomes known. One of the questions our country has to ask is, why are these powerful figures so intent on dealing with the personality? I don't think that the president of the country can say in his papers that he did not know. I think that is quite seriously a challenge, not just for him, but for his legal team and the people around him.
Flooding in Limpopo has led to the closure of 2 border posts between South Africa and Mozambique as heavy rain lashed the Bembe, Mopani and Waterberg districts over the weekend. In January, heavy rain and flooding caused 10 billion rand in infrastructure damage in the province. BMA spokesperson Meme Mukhotsi.
Pafuri is a port of entry between South Africa and Mozambique, situated in the far northern region of the Kruger National Park. Giriondo, which is also port between South Africa and Mozambique, is an important part of the Great Limpopo Transfrontier Park, which spans across South Africa, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe. There have been no injuries or damages to the infrastructure reported. Travelers who intend to access Pafuri Gate are advised to use Panda Maria Gate as an alternative access point. The BMA continues to monitor the situation closely.
And finally, the crisis in the Middle East has led to further travel disruptions and flight cancellations. Dubai International Airport has temporarily suspended its operations after a drone incident sparked a fire at one of the airport's fuel tanks. The Dubai Media Office, the public relations arm of the Dubai government, confirmed the incident and said the fire impacted one of the fuel tanks in the vicinity of the airport. There were no injuries reported, and the city's civil defense agency says the fire has been brought under control. Recapping the top story, a member of the Gauteng Organised Crime Unit, referred to as Witness F, returns to the Madlanga Commission this morning to continue with cross-examination. Sergeant Fanenkosi could not proceed with his testimony last month after he was hospitalized. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Theft, accident, and 1 million rand third-party cover for your older car. Outsurance Essential has it all. Get a quote. SMS car to 43185. That's car to 43185.
Proud of your price skills? Prouder that your car is paid off? Well, with Outsurance Essential car insurance, you could be saving too. 63-year-old Mudisa pays only 344 rand a month for his 2012 Chevrolet Cruze, and his claims are paid in cash within only 5 working days. Get Outsurance Essential car insurance today for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rand. SMS car to 43185. That's car to 43185. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
Very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports Headlines Cricket, the Proteas captain Keshav Maharaj praising South Africa's rookies after the Proteas beat New Zealand in the first T20 International. And in athletics, Adrian Wiltshut wins the New York Half Marathon in 59.3 minutes, becoming the first South African to win the race. We'll have details around 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning, Pretoria stays fairly heavy on the M1 South today from Montana down towards Rigel. There are 2 broken down vehicles and a crash before you get to Rigel Avenue, and that's what's causing that backlog of traffic. Of course, high volumes from Monday, plus those obstructions. N14 up to Eupheus Road looking slow this morning. That's the Ben Schoeman. The Krugersdorp Highway's heavy from the R55 Pretoria West exit through Brockfontein towards John Foster. Crashing just north of the airport, R21 by Atlas Road, very heavy, particularly northbound coming off the R24. Big backlogs onto the R21 up to Atlas, southbound from Benoni exit down through Atlas towards Voortrekker. Major delays both sides there. No traffic lights on Grayston Drive. Mike 1 Highway, trying to get off the highway is heavy. Delays coming through from Parktown. And before you get there, there's a crash on the Mike 1 North at Empire, backing you up through Crown towards Ormonde territory. Durban, the N2 North stays heavy from the M7 up to Westwood Mall. M4 Southern Freeway to Durban, chock-a-block this morning. And Inanda Road out through Newlands, Parlock down towards the N2's heavy. No traffic lights at Ottawa. So the R102 coming from Verulam stays busy. Cape Town, traffic lights out. Robert Sobukwe, 35th Avenue. That's a mess. M7, R300 out in Mitchell's Plain. That's pretty busy as well. And the N7 South is a bit of a standout coming from Dunoon down through the Plattercliff Road all the way to Bosman's Dump. Some big traffic on the N7 South. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
10 minutes after 8. Welcome to it, the third hour of the morning brief on this Monday. It is absolutely great to be in your company. As we always do around this time, let's reflect on those messages that have been coming through on the WhatsApp line, which is 0614 104 107. Some people would rather just put it in writing, right? Structure your thoughts really well and then make your arguments in a cogent and concise and precise manner. And that's exactly why we take your WhatsApp messages around this time. So let me start with this one then. This person says, Thulas, on the issue of one family, one loaf, the ANC is like that. They'd come up with the initiative and pick someone somewhere to test drive it. And when there's backlash to that initiative, they are quick to distance themselves to prove that this was and then goes on to say, to prove that this was an ANC idea. That official will be promoted, same as criminals that have been promoted before, like Diko and them, says that person who did not sign off on that message. Then someone else says, Mkhunu will obviously not bother being returned to his government position. He earns a free salary, free in capital letters, according to that message. Then another person, Matota says, Mkhunu must not want to hurry back to work. He must wait the completion of Madlanga Commission first, though there is no witness who has yet implicated him. And if he goes back, how is he going to work alongside Mkhwanazi? So there's a clear distinction there, Matota. He's seeking to return to party political activities in the ANC. And that's simply because as far as his job in the government, and I've said this over and over again, only one person can make a decision, and it can be made just like that by that one person who knows himself. Someone else says, does the ANC suffer from autoimmune disease? It kills itself unprovoked, says Zo in Bloemfontein. So that's a sampling of the messages around Senzo Mkhunu and the whole issue around Bernice Swartz and the One Loaf, One Family campaign. All of these issues that are up in the air, politically at least, for the ANC. Then let me read one or two that have to do with other issues that have been raised this morning. For instance, TG wants to talk about the issue of the CRL Rights Commission and the controversies that have come up in the wake of that commission, the Section 22 committee, and says this guy, I suppose this lady, referring to Pastor Mukuba, is a front for the real criminals who are destroying the country from outside. And this is not about the CRL chairperson, and these criminals must be held accountable, as many of these churches are there to steal from the people. And the government must make sure that criminality within these so-called pastors is dealt with without fear or favor. And hopefully you are going to call CRL leadership to respond this biased and misleading and misinformation by criminals who are calling themselves pastors. TG, thank you for that. We will definitely be reaching out to the CRL Rights Commission. We did also in the past when this issue came up around the Section 22 committee for them to explain. Then the Robert Sobukwe issue, and this is the last message I will read for now. This person says, the gentleman from the forum says towns cannot be named after individuals, but Graaff-Reinet itself is a name. They are just being racist and untruthful about their reasoning. Besides, how can they know what is or is not offensive to the rest of us? Mr. Derek Light has not seen the light. He's just being a mouthpiece for the far right and those who wish to conserve white superiority when it suits them. They will not win this. They will not win this one, and will end up with egg on their racist faces. It's Robert Sobukwe town from now on. Get used to it or just leave, says that person. So let's keep that conversation going. The number to dial is 086 000 2032, 086 000 2032, or you can send me a WhatsApp voice note on 0614 104 107. With that said, let's get into it. The third hour of the morning brief on this Monday.
This February, fall in love with friendships that feel like family. old bonds, new beginnings, and chapters that remind us why love in all its forms matters. The story comes full circle in The Best Man, the final chapters, where love, loyalty, and life collide one last time. Because some stories stay with you long after the final scene. The Best Man, the final chapters, weeknights 7 p.m. only on S3. The Love. S3.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable. You receive up to 745,000 rand worth of legal services per year. Our range of plans include cover for you, your spouse, children, and extended family. Plans include cover for civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Whether it's protection, violence, uncontested divorce, or poor service, your Clientele Legal lawyer will be there to assist you. Our services are convenient. Simply pick up the phone and call your lawyer or send us an email and we'll get back to you. All plans include a bail benefit of up to 5,000 rand and we'll go to the police station and pay it for you. Plus, Clientele Legal offers you 24-hour telephonic legal advice. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Thulasizwe Simelane is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
Indeed, we are, and we always are on those platforms, our digital platforms. Let me take a call from Kirk in Cape Town. Kirk, good morning.
Thulasizwe, I'm calling about the Senzo and Kulu
Yes.
issue and the step-aside policy of the ANC. There is no morality left within the ANC structures, not only in the leadership, and although he forms part of the leadership, every leader who gets charged or tainted should, of their own volition, step aside. But the ANC has encouraged this policy of ducking and diving and dodging the issue and obfuscation. So the fact that he has not stepped aside, even though so many things have come out in the Matlanga Commission, is not disappointing or surprising. It is the trend within the ANC for the last 10, 12, 15 years. Sad to see such a great organization being laid waste by poor leadership.
But do you believe that he will be allowed to step back in, coming in from the cold, at least for party political purposes? Or will there be a sense that says, look, there's no harm in you waiting it out a little bit longer for these processes to reach their outcome point?
He should be excluded from every structure of the ANC, every structure of government. But once again, I won't be surprised if he's allowed back in, because all he will say is, I'm following the rules. The step aside, I haven't been charged, therefore I can carry on as usual, in spite of all the revelations that have come out. And I'm not saying that you're guilty. You're guilty because you've been accused. But all I'm saying is that the appearance or the impression that people have of the organization is totally ignored by its leadership.
All right, Kirk, let's hear what other people have to say about all of that. Let me go to Pule in Matlosana. Good morning to you, Pule.
Yes, Thulas, how are you?
Very well, how are you? Please go ahead.
Good. Look, Thulas, two things quick. Huh? I've been watching this ad hoc committee, especially Skosana and I don't know, should I call them Honorable Skosana and Honorable James. Their conduct and the manner they talk to their weaknesses about are there to assist them with information. They call them names, they call them hacks, they call them criminals. I think one day they'll call them rapists without any competent court of law findings that Upule is a criminal, is a fact. He is standing. They are not a court to go there. Whatever evidence or the feelings they have, they must not call witnesses that are before them, facts and criminals. It's uncalled for.
Yeah.
These people are there that you can only be titled after you've been found guilty by a competent court of law that you are a criminal or you are a fraudster. I was listening to Skosana calling one witness a fraudster. Whatever information he has, the person will remain a suspect. Two things. Once you are arrested by the police, you are a suspect. Once you appear before the magistrate and you plead guilty or not guilty, your state has changed. You are no longer a suspect. You are the accused. You are not yet found guilty.
Yeah.
After you have been found guilty, your title changed. Then you will be a fraudster, or you will be a murderer, or you will be a rapist. But their conduct leaves much to be desired.
Let me ask you something very quickly. Let me engage you slightly on that, Pule. Isn't it that sometimes they use these names because they are giving the witness, and I'm not speaking up for them at all. I've personally not been impressed by some of the questions that have been asked. For instance, the question about any sexual relations between a witness and another person. And I thought, what are we discussing here? But isn't it about them putting across to the witness a public perception that they are giving them the opportunity to address that? With politicians, the standard is lower, so they don't need to meet that proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, but they, in a way, put themselves in the position of the public that says, when I look at you, I see a criminal, so therefore I put it to you that you're a criminal, and that gives you the opportunity to address it.
It's a suspect. That's why I've made a legal reference. Once the police arrest me, I'm not a criminal. Even if there's a crime that I committed, I'm a suspect of a crime. I'm not a criminal. Now, they'll take me to a court, and the state will say, we'll have a case against Pula or Tula. And once I appear before the magistrate, I'm still not a criminal, I'm a suspect. But once I plead guilty or not guilty, my state has changed. I'm no longer a suspect, I become the accused person. So they are not competent to find people. Whatever the evidence or the feelings they have, they cannot call a person a fuck, and a criminal. And their emotions need to cool down.
Yeah, I hear you. Pule, thank you for that. Yes. Lots of people have been reflecting on the performance of our public representatives before that ad hoc committee. As much as the people who've appeared before them have been in the spotlight and in the limelight and in a way, on public trial, so have the people who have been leading this process, the MPs themselves. Let me take a call from Simpiwe in Richards Bay. Good morning to you, Simpiwe.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. How are you?
Very well. Please go ahead.
I'm sorry, my man. I just want to make a contribution on this renaming issue. I think mine is just a principle. My belief is the various departments are allocated a budget to perform their specific functions. And one of those departments is arts and culture. And I believe it is important that they play a particular role, and heritage is part of arts and culture, number one. Number two, I happened to visit some of the countries that were previously colonized. One of them is India. And one thing that caught my eye was the buildings, the heritage that remains in India, even though they were colonized like us. But in Africa, you find that colonization was very, very, very effective and harsh to us because it eradicated and eroded our heritage. So the only thing that we are trying to do is to bring back our heritage, so that we can't build the old houses that were damaged during colonization. Yeah. So if we allow this other minority who are not willing to accept that apartheid was evil against humanity, and they want to hold on to these names, even when we say, for example, the issue of Robert Sobukwe. Robert Sobukwe is a child of the soil, number one. Number two, he was born in Graaff-Reinet. And the people are saying, we want to honor him. And then now is the issue of the name of a colonizer and the name of the child of the soil. And the colonizer wants to hold on to the heritage in the name of the abuse of the budget and funds. Yes, I agree to the issue of prioritization to the certain extent. But my point is, what prioritization when the department that has been allocated funds to deal with heritage is using it towards that?
Simpiwe,
I think for me, it's a shallow argument.
All right, thank you for that. That's Simpiwe out in Richards Bay. Xolisa and Jock, I'll come to your calls in just a moment.
63-year-old Almero knows all about saving with Outsurance.
We do save 417 Rand. That's about 5,000 Rand a year.
That's an awesome saving on Almero's 2021 Ford Ranger.
And there's an out bonus that you get if you don't claim for 3 years. I am really looking forward to it.
How much money could Outsurance save you? Get a quote now. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Licensed insurer in FSP. TCs and information online.
This February, love staying informed. As your day winds down and the evening begins, Primetime News moves to a new home. Weekdays at 6 p.m. The stories that matter, the context you trust, the news that connects you to South Africa and the world. Because loving what you watch also means trusting what you hear. Primetime News airs weeknights at 8 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Join Proudly South African for the 14th annual Buy Local Summit and Expo taking place on the 16th and 17th of March 2026 at the Sandton Convention Center. This premier Buy Local event brings together business leaders, entrepreneurs and consumers to champion locally made products and services. Expect a vibrant exhibition, matchmaking between entrepreneurs and major corporates, insightful panel discussions and a business solutions hub. This year's theme is localization, a critical imperative to the economy. Come and explore how supporting local businesses creates jobs and economic resilience. Attendance is free. Register now at proudlysa.co.za or via link in socials. Loved here, made here.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let me take a call from Xolisa in Gukompo City. Good morning to you, Xolisa.
Good morning, Thulas. Thulas, let me just quickly make a disclaimer that I am a born-again Christian. I am a pastor, and I wanted to comment on the issue regarding the CRL with your guest earlier on. First and foremost, Thulas, I am in agreement with some sort of regulation for the church or any other entity that deals with people. But I've got a problem, Thulas. I've always been saying this. I've got a problem because we are told that perception is a reality for others, and it's everything. I've got a problem when someone who is in the office of a chairperson who comes out to nullify the issue of us or Christians being able to communicate with God, but upholds that they can be able to speak to ancestors. And once you start to do that, you are sowing a seed of division within society.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things that are happening in this country. There's a lot. These borders I can tell you now, you've got Bushiri who has been enabled by police to escape and steal money in this country. But now when it comes to church, people must come up in arms to say that these people are abusing our people. How many times have people been abusing this country? Yeah. Churches must be regulated in some way or the other. Traditional healers must be regulated, because you hear stories every day about sangomas who kill people for muti and all of those things. So for me, it's really becoming problematic when I
just quick one on this comment about the comments that I didn't hear the comments that are attributed to the chairperson of the CRL Rights Commission. But are you talking about the comments where she's said to have said anyone who says they're hearing the voice of God should be checked by a psychiatrist?
Ward.
Yeah,
exactly that. Because that means now she's out hell-bent in actually putting the church in disrepute. We can isolate these cases. We can isolate these people who are doing these things within the church. I've got my own issues with the church.
Yeah.
But to nullify God and church, for me, it's problematic, and it's something that actually I don't know, Thulas. I wish really we can have time. We can sit around the table and talk about these things, because there's so much wrong in this country. And if we're going to pick and choose on what we should focus on and chase after, then that becomes a problem for me.
Xolisa, thank you for calling in. That's Xolisa out in Gugompo City, formerly East London. Let's go to N. Musa, standing by with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, the Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU, has rejected proposals to liquidate the South African Post Office. The Labour Federation has accused the Post Office business rescue practitioners of further crippling the institution and failing its employees. The Palapala farm theft trial will resume in the Modimolle Regional Court in Limpopo this morning. 3 accused persons are being tried for the theft of $580,000 from President Cyril Ramaphosa's farm in February of 2020. And a member of the Gauteng Organised Crime Unit, referred to as Witness F, returns to the Matlanga Commission this morning to continue with cross-examination. Witness F, whose real name is Sergeant Fani Nkosi, could not proceed with his testimony last month after he was hospitalized. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Just getting a picture through from Mount Aleph showing a sort of deteriorating traffic pattern around the Mount Aleph region due to the protesting this morning. Normally, these things are up quite early. They're dealt with pretty quickly and things get moving on. But that central Mount Aleph area, just on the western side of town, if you like, still blocked with lengthy queues of traffic. If you need to get through Mount Aleph, down in the Western Cape, leave it until maybe lunchtime later this afternoon and have a go there. Traffic is absolutely stationary at this stage. N1 south out of Pretoria looking a lot better. A couple of breakdowns and a crash in around Rigel all cleared up, so that's released the traffic. Witkoppen, collision near Pritchard, Johannesburg North area, very slow from to and from North Riding, between North Riding and Fourways, if you like. And a crash on the R21 going northward, fatality this morning. R21 up by Atlas Road, very heavy. Big backlogs from Barbara Road on the R24 onto the R21 and then all the way through. The southbound side is starting to ease and move, so if you're airport bound, it's looking a lot better. Mike 1, crash at Empire Road going north. N3, a disaster, Germiston right through to Edenvale, super heavy this morning. Durban, easing up pretty nicely, coming off Munsum Toti. The traffic through Westwood Mall on the N2 stays busy, and there is a backlog coming out of Schlanger on the M4 down towards Virginia Airport. Still, Cape Town, traffic lights down, Monadam area. It's Robert Sobukwe, Stellenbosch Arterial, very slow getting through that part of town this morning. And the N1 inbound, a bit sluggish from Plattercliff Hill all the way through to about the Kuba interchange. More queues on the M1 as you line up over the elevated freeway. And the M5 that was heavy up to the Kuba interchange earlier has eased, but there's still some pressure there from Kenilworth moving up towards the N2 for a turn into Hospital Bend. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
All right, let's start this hour, Zai, with cricket. The Proteas prevailing against New Zealand in the first T20 International.
I love that, Thulas. Yes, the Proteas, their production line, the next generation just keeping rolling and the youngsters putting their hands up. So what a win for us. And in this, it was a convincing 7-wicket T20 win over New Zealand's national team. All happened in Mount Maunganui. Teenage Sima Ngubani Mokoena impressing with 3 for 26 on debut, while Connor Esterhazen anchored the chase with an unbeaten 45, as it was a very youthful Protea side that showed impressive depth in this series opener. Let's go to soccer, where SABC Sport will bring fans comprehensive coverage of the 2026 FIFA World Cup taking place from the 11th of June to the 19th of July 2026. The tournament will be broadcast live on SABC3, SABC Plus and SABC radio stations. Soccer action, and FC Barcelona restored their 4-point lead at the top of La Liga with a 5-2 victory over Sevilla at the Camp Nou. Raphinha scored a hat-trick, while Dani Olmo and João Cancelo were also on target. Barca now turn their focus to a Champions League clash, and that's with Newcastle on Wednesday. Meanwhile, Wayne Rooney has urged Manchester United to appoint Michael Carrick as their permanent manager. Carrick has guided United to 7 wins in 9 matches since taking charge in January, including a 3-1 win over Aston Villa yesterday that lifted the club to 3rd in the Premier League. Onto cycling, and South Africans Matt Beers and Tristan Nokia claimed the opening prologue of the ABSA Cape Epic in Durbanville. The Toyota Specialized Mbuku pair won the 20-kilometer stage by 6 seconds to claim the first yellow jersey. Stage 1 continues in Montague over 90 kilometers with 2,150 meters of climbing. And finally, athletics. Adrian Wilshut has won the New York City Half Marathon in 59.30 minutes, becoming the first South African to win the race. The South African record holder goes sub 60 minutes for the first time over the half marathon distance with that commanding victory. That's your morning brief sport. Check back. We'll have Jod Herika around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Dowling, good morning to you once again. The issue of exploration in mining comes up all the time in terms of where the state of our mining industry stands. And you are saying this morning that it has reached a multi-year low.
A 7-year low in better detail there, Thulas, with the mining sector facing a growing concern around the lack of investment in mineral exploration, a trend that could threaten the industry's long-term outlook. Now, new data from Stats SA shows exploration spending declined again in 2025, marking the 7th consecutive year of contraction. The amount companies are spending to search for new mineral deposits has now fallen sharply compared with levels last seen 3 decades ago. An industry body, Minerals Council South Africa, warns the slowdown in exploration is a major risk because it limits the discovery of future mines and weakens the sector's project pipeline. While SA struggles, competing mining jurisdictions such as Zambia and the DRC are attracting a larger share of exploration funding. In response, government has set a goal to raise the country's share of global exploration investment, which currently sits below 1%.
And as far as ticket prices are concerned in the aviation sector, first it was Fly South Air, now it's SAA adding some kind of a hike related to the fuel concerns?
At this point, I'd suggest we all just sit at home because, nothing looks good to us. SAA has become the latest airline to raise ticket prices as surging jet fuel costs ripple through the aviation industry. Now, the carrier confirmed it will introduce a temporary fuel surcharge on new bookings after suppliers notified the airline of immediate increases in jet fuel prices. The spike, of course, is linked to ongoing tensions in the Middle East, which have pushed global oil prices higher. SAA had initially tried to keep fares stable, but says the scale of the increases makes it impossible to absorb the cost entirely. The move, as you mentioned there, follows a similar step by airline Fly South Air, which recently implemented its own fuel surcharge. Airlines globally are feeling the pressure as the price of oil climbs above $100 a barrel, raising operating costs across the sector.
Lastly, Dowling, project ahead for us, please, and give us a sense of your expectations for the markets today.
So the JSE likely to start the week mixed following international peers. It is a busy day on the company news front with earnings season in full swing. Numbers out from MTN, Sun International, and newly listed Optasia. So lots to digest at the open. Over in the currencies scene, the rand on the back foot this morning at 16.86 to the dollar, 22.32 to the pound, and 19.26 to the euro. Broad-based losses in the local unit as oil continues to trade higher and feel the risk of sentiment. Now, this is on supply constraints due to the war in the Gulf region, which has seen crude jump 1.5% this hour to $104 a barrel. Back to equities, US futures are in positive territory amid the volatility. Investors will be keeping a close eye on the Fed as policymakers meet this week to decide on monetary policy amid energy price shocks. Those energy price shocks filtering through to Asian markets with stocks on that front mixed.
All right, thank you for that, Ntauleng. That's Ntauleng Lechela, who's kept you updated on business, economics, and the markets.
Clientele is here to safeguard you and your family with compassion because life happens. Be part of a family that truly cares. Our funeral dignity plans have helped South Africans bury their loved ones with dignity for more than 30 years. Let us help you create a meaningful tribute that honors your life and those of your loved ones. We pay out within 24 hours and you will get double accident cover with a clientele funeral plan. Our plans are affordable. Pick the option that suits your needs. Easy to apply, no medical examinations and no paperwork. SMS SAFM to 48031. That's 48031. Clientele Life is an authorized FSP and licensed life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
This February, fall in love with the journey. No phones, no flights, just determination, connection, and the open road. From breathtaking landscapes to unexpected challenges. Race Across the World is back. Bigger, bolder, and more emotional than ever. Because sometimes the best way to find yourself is to travel together. Race Across the World Season 4, Thursdays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Big stories of the day. #The Morning Brief.
All right, let's focus on this story now. As the war in the Middle East pushes global oil markets into turmoil, concerns are growing about the country's own fuel security, South Africa that is, and its heavy dependence on imported crude. Although government insists there is no immediate risk of shortages, energy analysts warn that the country's shrinking refinery capacity has made it far more vulnerable to global supply shocks. Several refineries have closed in recent years, leaving South Africa reliant on just 2 operational crude refineries alongside synthetic fuel production through Sasol. If the conflict in the Gulf disrupts shipping routes or pushes oil prices even higher, economists are warning that the consequences could ripple through the entire economy, from transport costs to food prices and inflation. Let's speak to Professor Vali Padayache, who is power and energy expert, also a former executive manager of Eskom and also a former senior executive of City Power in Johannesburg. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. So there are 2 perspectives here. Nothing to worry about, don't panic, as encapsulated by government and the Department of Energy, Mineral and Petroleum Resources, assuring the public that fuel supply, not a concern, we may worry about pricing, etc. Then there's the perspective that says we continue to be vulnerable. Which one should we go with?
Good morning, truly to you and your listeners, and I'm glad to be back on your show. I think we should worry about both, and let me qualify that. Notwithstanding that the department, DPM PR has made assurances, if that situation in the Middle East persists for longer than expected, and the expectation we don't know is when, then both of them will apply. In other words, if the situation in the Middle East ends tomorrow, then I think the reassurances from the department will prevail, and we could sustain that. Meaning that our what you call resources and all of that would be sufficient. But if it prevails, then the red flags would become redder. Meaning that our access to supplies, although the department has said that we have alternative supplies from Nigeria, Angola, etc., but as we know, that every other country in the world would be looking to accessing even the northern Middle Eastern resources. So, in a nutshell, Tuli, If the war ends, I'm calling it war, but maybe the situation in the Middle East ends the next couple of days, we could still be in good books. But if it persists for another couple of weeks, we could be seeing red flags, Tuli.
A lot is said about the refining capacity that has declined over the last few years, with the result that we are left with the Natref refinery and Astron being the two key crude refineries that are still operational, and then Sasol Secunda being the synthetic fuels one that converts coal to petroleum products. Does that matter in a context where the actual issue is source and supply of global crude, or does it make an already difficult situation even more difficult?
I'm glad you raised that question, Tuli, because it's an excellent question, and it does matter, because the two major refineries that shut down, actually Engen and Sapraf, Shell and BP, I actually used to work for those refineries, were major refineries, and actually Sapraf was the largest refining capability in the Southern Hemisphere. And with those two having now been shut down, it has limited the downstream petroleum products. And as you say, we're only relying on those three assets that you mentioned. But importantly, in the context of that, they all, even those three or the two refining capabilities, need crude oil. So crude oil is still being imported, so that's a risk. And also, with the closure of the two refineries, the downstream petroleum products are also being imported. So that's another risk that's being added to the scenario. So in a nutshell, Tuli, I'm just worried that with the limited downstream refining capacity, if the war, the situation in the Middle East persists, it's going to make access to the downstream products a lot more difficult.
And in terms of the petroleum products that we consume as an economy, which ones would be of concern sooner than the others? I think last week I was speaking to Lyndon Burns, and he was talking about the nuances of refinery for purposes of jet fuel. And for him, that was the main concern that was coming to mind.
Well, I'm glad you also raised that question, because it's not only oil and jet fuel that we should be concerned with. Remember, gas is also being transported to the Straits of Hormuz. And South Africa uses a lot of gas, even in the power sector. Also fertilizers. We have an elaborate agricultural sector, so fertilizers is also being constrained, and also aluminium. So there are a number of products besides just oil that we should be worried about. Also, even the coal-fired power stations in South Africa uses fuel oil to fire up their boilers and furnaces. So that's another risk that we got to factor in, Tuli.
Yeah. Lastly then, Prof, is this the fact that government can at this point say that no need to worry, no need to panic, because we source our crude from various parts of the African continent, and in particular West Africa, is it vindication for this whole idea of diversification of sources? I get that the pressure will be up when the demand for oil from the sources that we currently rely on ramps up because of the disruptions in the Gulf region. But are we vindicated to a certain extent about diversification of sourcing of crude?
Well, I think to a certain extent we are vindicated. I mean, I would classify that as part of energy security. But as I alluded to in the beginning, even with the Nigeria and Angola sources, other countries, maybe Western countries, European countries, would also be competing for access to the Nigerian and Angolan sources. And at the end of the day, it will be the highest bidder that may get access to those sources. I'm not sure of the agreement or the arrangements between South Africa and Nigeria and Angola. But my final point on that aspect, Tuli, is the price of oil. In other words, it's measured on Brent and WTI, and once those prices are set by those agencies, especially Brent, which is now sitting at over $100 a barrel, those prices are translated to every other country. So South Africa would be facing that. So in the context of having alternative resources, our prices are not only going to be affecting our pockets, end-use customers, but also going to be affect transportation and all the other sectors that rely on oil, gas, etc. for the economy. So all in all, we are not in a good space, Tuli.
All right, Prof, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights. That's Professor Vali Padayache, who is power and energy expert and also a former executive manager of Eskom and a senior executive of City Power in Johannesburg.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
The latest fuel price projections are very scary. We saw the Central Energy Fund in South Africa, the body that sets the fuel price, released figures on Friday, which showed under recovery of 93 grade petrol sitting at about R3.87. So that's the projected increase for April. 95 grade was R4.27. Diesel, depending on the level of diesel, a percentage of diesel, both over R7, 7.05 and 7.15. So it's getting a bit scary as we look towards April and the fuel prices. Joburg this morning, the roads, the R21 northbound, that crash at Atlas Road, still there, very heavy. The queue starts R24 Barbara Road onto the R21 and then up the R21 to Atlas Road. If you've got to get from Kenter Park, Edenvale, up towards Tembisa, Clayville, Pretoria side, or out to the airport, look at alternative routes. That traffic is really bad today. The N3 north into the roadworks at Van Buren, still queuing. Queues the other side of Galulies as well, sitting between Galulies and Modderfontein Road, and pretty heavy coming into Sandton via Hurlingham, Republic Road, Winnie Mandela, down onto Sandton, drive into Grayston. It's all heavily backed up through there. Durban, the N2 north, the run through Westwood Mall has eased, which is nice. Took a little bit longer than normal, but it has eased. The M4 Umhlanga down to Durban also looking good at this hour as well. Cape Town, still some delays. Top of the airport, probably will be for a bit longer. No traffic lights. Robert Sobukwe, 35th Avenue. It's a busy junction, that, without traffic lights. M3 from Wynberg Hill through Hospital Bend, staying busy as well. And don't forget, if you've got to get through the Eastern Cape, maybe give Mount Aleph a little bit of time to sort itself out. Some protesting there this morning, just on the western side, just west of Mount Aleph Central. The N2 has been under pressure with traffic stacking into the burning tyres and the community protest there. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Bafana are preparing for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, which will be hosted by the United States of America, Canada, and Mexico from 11 June to 19 July 2026. Bafana will host 2 international friendlies against Panama on Friday, 27 March in Durban at the Moses Mabhida Stadium at 7 p.m. and Tuesday, 31 March in Cape Town at the DHL Stadium at 7:30 p.m. Tickets are available at Ticket Pro at 80 Rand for adults and 50 Rand for children under 12. For more details, visit safa.net and Bafana on X.
Without insurance, saving on your car insurance feels like being upgraded to first class on a flight. 35-year-old Becca saves an unbelievable 500 Rand on her 2022 Volkswagen T-Cross. Get a quote now, and if insurance can't save you money, ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get savings or cash. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Simon in Polokwane is asking, Simon says, your newsreader mentioned the full names of witness F. Is that allowed? I thought I'd respond to that when Simon. Thank you for that. The reason for that is that initially he was under that code name witness F, but he's been named because there was an application that was brought in trying to avoid having to testify. And in those processes, his name came to the fore. So therefore, that whole point has become moot. In a way, basically, what's the point if you've already been named in those papers? And then Dubandlela. Dubandlela, you are inviting me to mischief. Andizi. Dubandlela says Thulasizwe is Thuli today and has all of these laughing emojis. Dubandlela, I'm not coming. I'm not available for that. Jock, good morning to you.
Good morning, Thulasizwe, to you and your guests, as well as your staff that help you in the background. Thanks again for the excellent show. My comments come about changing or name changing for towns, cities, and places like that. I don't think it should become an issue, but we must remember that using Graaff-Reinet as an example, we cannot say that if we change the name and we change it to, I forget the gentleman's name, if we change it to his name, we can't say that he was born in the same town as his name. So we got to understand that, yes, culturally it is good to actually get rid of what happened in the past or during apartheid. But if that was really the truth and that was the main reason for changing names or to get rid of the hurt and pain and suffering of the previous generation of people or the previous government, then we must remember that we should be going back to the names of the original towns and cities that they were when they were colonized. The issue about that would be that if there is no name or a name that was given to that town, or that town was created by the colonial government, which is what Julius Malema said many years ago, that the new government has never created a new town, city, or place in terms of an epicenter of growth or townships or towns or cities. If that is really true, then I agree with both parties in terms of I understand the reason for changing it, but I also understand the reason for fighting it and opposing it for changing it to a name that doesn't exist or didn't exist prior to that. Because that would mean, as far as I understand it, that would mean that there was no loss to start off with. If, say, eThekwini was renamed from Durban to eThekwini, if there wasn't a name before Durban, I don't see the need, because all we're doing is we're basically being racist again by going back, by naming them to something that the current regime or government of the time is wanting to do. Gotcha. So what the gentleman said from Richards Bay, I agree with him. When he went to India and he saw the colonial government of what they did and what they've done and what they left, I don't think at the end of the day, if you look at India per se, India has grown by 10-12% per annum on a GDP. They still are one of the highest growing countries. So why not take a step or a page from their book and understand that was the name changing good for their country? Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not an analyst to understand that. But surely someone should be going back and seeing the countries that were successful, that did name change. What was the reason for that? Did it bring unity amongst its people? Because from my point of view is that this is being very, very decisive in terms of dividing, because it's actually dividing two cultures all over again, instead of just having one or the other.
All right, Jock, thank you for that input. That's Jock talking about the issues of the name changes. I want to round it off with a few messages that came in much earlier on in the show that have to do with events elsewhere in the world. And I really like the fact that you diversify the conversation every morning. So let me take them back to back.
Good morning, Thulas and the team. Good show as always. I believe Thulas, US President, miscalculated the decision to strike Iran together with Israel. Considering that Thulas, this is the World Cup year, USL should be focusing on marketing the World Cup. Instead, they are entangled in an unending war with Iran. So I believe his decision is misplaced. Thulas, that's my take. Thank you, PK.
Gole. Sipo, no matter how we may dislike Rwanda, I think Rwanda is very effective and efficient. Whether it's for the French colony or French interest, it doesn't matter to me. What matters is that they go there, they make a mission. SADC is useless, toothless. That is why we could not even solve the problems of Zimbabwe, everywhere else. We're indecisive. So I like Paul Kagame because he's decisive. Anyway, sometimes when you do something, it can be interest for someone else. Don't think that Cuba and Russia just help African people in their struggle. But because it was a Cold War against America and the West. So somewhere, somehow, you will drive interest of someone else when he's help you. There's nothing like free lunch. Cuba helped us because of their hatred of America, because they thought we were in the same line. We are all fighting America.
Kore, thank you for that. And PK, thank you for the message prior to that. That's where we leave it. Thank you for listening and thank you for your engagement as always. The Talking Point is up next here on SAFM after the news at 9 with N. Musa. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. You've been briefed.
In our top stories, COSATU rejects proposals to liquidate the post office and Witness F returns to Matlanga Commission for cross-examination. Good morning. The Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU, has rejected proposals to liquidate the South African Post Office. The Labour Federation has accused the Post Office business rescue practitioners of further crippling the institution and failing its employees. The union is calling for the removal of the BRPs and wants the Department of Communications to put competent administrators in place. COSATU's parliamentary coordinator, Matthew Parks, says the post office needs business practitioners who have the capabilities and commitment to stabilise the institution.
They failed to turn around the post office. They failed to put in place a convincing turnaround plan, which is one of the difficulties with National Treasury, who have said they are willing to provide financial support, but they need to see a credible turnaround plan. And 2 years later, despite these discussions, the business have not provided anybody a credible turnaround plan. All they've simply asked for is more money, and they simultaneously retrench more staff, close more branches. So you don't get a sense that the BRPs have done anything more than prolong the agony and worsen the situation.
The Pala farm theft trial will resume in the Modimolle Regional Court in Limpopo this morning. 3 accused persons are being tried for the theft of $580,000 from President Cyril Ramaphosa's farm in February of 2020. The lead investigator is expected to continue his testimony about a confession statement obtained from a hostile witness. The accused Emanuela David and the Joseph siblings are facing charges of theft, conspiracy to commit theft, money laundering and housebreaking. The court has ordered that the witness should not be identified. Rendane Ralipaswa reports.
When took the witness stand during the previous sitting, the lead investigating officer read the context of the confession statement by the hostile witness. In the confession statement, the hostile witness admitted to have assisted David and his co-accused, the Joseph siblings, with transport on the day of the theft. The investigating officer also testified that the statement was obtained at the witness's residence in Libwahomo, outside Polokwane. The defense lawyers are today expected to start cross-examining the investigating officer.
A member of the Gauteng Organised Crime Unit referred to as Witness F returns to the Matlanga Commission this morning to continue with cross-examination. Witness F, whose real name is Sergeant Fani Nkosi, could not proceed with his testimony last month after he was hospitalized. Nkosi sought to avoid testifying in person and filed a High Court application to block the reading of WhatsApp messages found on his device. Sibahle Mota reports.
Sergeant Nkosi, who's also known as Witness F, has linked suspended Deputy National Police Commissioner General Shadrack Sibia to attempted murder accused Vusumuzi Kat Matlala. He is also believed to be the link between General Sibia and murder accused Katiso Katie Molefe. Sergeant Nkosi has testified about how General Sibia instructed him to invite Matlala to an event at his home in 2024. The event was also attended by suspended organized crime head Major General Richard Shibiri. Sergeant Nkosi is believed to be the middleman between high-ranking police officials and members of the alleged criminal cartel.
Over 160 wanted suspects have been arrested in Mpumalanga on charges of assault with intent to inflict grievous bodily harm. The arrests occurred during Operation Shanela 2, carried out across the province over the weekend. Mpumalanga police spokesperson Mavela Masondo says more suspects were arrested during roadblocks and compliance checks at liquor outlets.
Roadblocks
blocks, stop and searches, compliance checks on liquor outlets and second-hand dealers were also conducted, which resulted in the arrest of more than 1,400 suspects. The arrested suspects are expected to appear before different magistrate courts in Mpumalanga in due course.
And finally, explosions have been reported across the Iranian capital, Tehran, with plumes of smoke rising near the airport. Israel's military said it was conducting wide-scale strikes on Tehran as the war enters the 17th day. The BBC's Frank Gardner has more.
The US and Israel are showing no sign of letting up their bombardment of Iran, and dialogue, it seems, is dead. Speaking to CBS's Face the Nation programme, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi denied US claims that his country was desperate for a deal. The longer this war goes on, the more questions are raised as to its purpose. More than 2 weeks on, the Islamic Republic regime has neither collapsed nor capitulated.
Recapping the top story, the Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU, has rejected proposals to liquidate the South African Post Office. The Labour Federation has accused the Post Office business rescue practitioners of further crippling the institution and failing its employees. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
This February, love the shows that keep you guessing. Every case tells a story. Every clue brings you closer to the truth. From shocking twists to unforgettable investigations, Homicide returns with seasons 3 and 4, where justice is hard-won and nothing is ever simple. Because loving what you watch sometimes means leaning into the darkness. Homicide seasons 3 and 4, weekdays at 12 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
As you sit in traffic reflecting on a good day, projects on track, clients happy, and they're a big one too. They trust you with all their sensitive data that's kept in your outdated work laptop, in your car, as you sit in traffic. Don't let bad tech choices get in the way. Switch to tailored secure cloud solutions, because nothing should stop your business. Call 084-1234. Cell C.
This Human Rights Month, we commemorate a significant milestone, the Bill of Rights at 30, making human dignity real. For 3 decades, South Africa's constitution has been a beacon of equality, freedom and justice for all. Yet dignity is not just written in our constitution, it must be lived, protected and upheld every single day. Join SAFM as we unpack the issues that matter, elevate voices driving change, and reflect on the progress we've made while confronting the work that still lies ahead. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
There's a bold new rhythm on SABC2, and it starts Monday, 9 February, weekdays at 3:30 p.m. A new vodcast, Our Space, fires up conversation with young perspectives. At 4:30 p.m., a new talk show, Ain't Like Let's Connect, hosted by Penny Lebiane and Fran Rico. At 7:30 p.m., Deal or No Deal, now in a new time slot, Raising the Tension with Katlego Mabuwe. At 9 p.m., the new telenovela, Pimville, starring Gil Mabalane and Tapelo Mokoena, brings bold Soweto stories to life. From 23 February at 7 p.m, settle in for new drama, Paradise, starring Losha Cooper, Ilse Klink and Zayn Mias. This is the new era of SABC2. Live in every beat, the pulse of SA. SABC2.
As we celebrate 90 years of existence, SAFM takes you back to the voices that shaped a nation.
Now leave the SABC and see the tower block lit up, 27 stories of light. Move from Auckland Park into the shadow of the Hillbrow Post Office Tower.
This is the English service of the SABC. Here is the news, read by Patricia Carr. A member of the Planning Committee of the President's Council, Mr. Nick Turnich, has been appointed chairman of the Council's Community Relations Community.
90 years of trusted voices. This is SAFM.
Exciting news, South Africa. SABC TV Licenses has partnered with Capitec to make paying your TV license simple, affordable and accessible. If you're a Capitec client, sign into the app and click on Transact. Next, select Pay Bills, then click Pay At and enter your reference number to complete your payment. It's as easy as that. You'll receive instant SMS confirmation. Now you can keep your stories alive and your screens shining bright. TV licenses, pay yours, make a difference.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Many dating problems can be solved with flirting. Can't get a date? Flirt more. Always like them more than they like you? Date the ones who flirt back. Flirting gives you more agency over human connection. If you're single, it helps you to connect and fall in love. If you're partnered, it helps you to reignite or maintain the spark of chemistry that brought you together in the first place. In other words, flirting is a multi-purpose, customizable superpower. In popular culture, we've seen countless depictions of the super confident, sweet-talking style of flirting. But in real life, you don't have to be the most confident person in the room to be a good flirt. And if you associate being flirtatious with a pickup artist who comes across as creepy or insincere, remember the definition that we're working with: making another person feel seen, special, and acknowledged, not objectified, creeped out, or potentially unsafe. I believe that introverts have a secret advantage when it comes to flirting because your efforts at being more open feel more genuinely inspired by another person and therefore special. So if you're nervous about talking to strangers, take a few deep breaths, focus on the other person, and do it anyway. For the record, if I call you a flirt, I mean it as a compliment, especially if I give you the eyebrows.
Francesca Hogi is a love coach, writer, and podcast host. It's 12 after 9 o'clock. Welcome, welcome, welcome to The Talking Point. My name is Kathy Motlatlana, and I'll be with you until midday as we lead conversations that move us. So, yeah, we are beginning the week with a bit of a bang in the sense that you will hear there's some ambient noise behind me. We are broadcasting live from Gallagher Convention Center. This is where the National Transport Conference is taking place and will be taking place over the next 3 days. And it's set to bring together all transport stakeholders under one roof to really try and bring in that synergy, to bring in that alignment, and I guess also that oneness of voice in terms of where the country is going to when it comes to its transport policy, and the different players then that are implementers, that are policymakers, that are making all of this happen, that are contributing to all of this happening. So what's going to happen this morning is that we're going to be speaking to some of the stakeholders. We're expecting to speak to one of the ministers of transport and then also one of the officials who will help us understand what the purpose of this conference is, but also just what are the lessons that we as South Africa are learning from the rest of the world, and how do we intend to apply it and bring it home locally. So that will be what happens between now and 9:30. At 9:30 then we are going to take you live to the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. And we know that at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, we're going to be expecting to hear evidence from Witness F. Witness F, who is really the man who is said to be the go-between between some of these generals within the SAPS, in particular General Shadrack Sibiya, and members of the so-called Big Five cartel. And he's going to continue with his evidence. You'd remember that had started giving evidence and then it was paused, and now he is going to continue with it. In fact, if I remember well, General Sibiya, when he was giving his testimony, had wanted an opportunity to actually conclude his evidence after hearing what witness F was going to say, which is Fanny Nkosi, because he says they disagree on many things in as far as the sequence of events that unfolded between the two of them, the role that he played in being this alleged intermediary between Sibiya and the likes of Kat Matala. And I think that with the insight of General Sibiya's evidence then going into the session today, it's going to be quite interesting to see the kind of questions that Fanny Nkosi is asked, because now there is a version of Sibiya that has been put on the table, and that will be one of the things then that he will be trying to contend with. That will be one of the things that he will be trying to correct, to say that in fact this may not be the case. So we'll take you live then to the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry at 9:30 when it gets underway. So it is a hive of activity here at Gallagher Estate. Part of the tagline says bringing all transport stakeholders under one roof. The Deputy Minister of Transport, Minister Mkhuleko Nhlekwa, is sitting across from me.
Good morning, Sis
Good
Kathy.
morning, good morning,
Happy Monday.
Minister. Yes, a Monday that you guys are coming into with a sprint, really, at this National Transport Conference. So, why a National Transport Conference? What is the purpose of all of this? I mean, did you need to meet your KPIs before financial year end?
Oh, no. You would know that the Department of Transport received its first clean audit for the first time in 30 years last year, so we are on track with stabilizing governance with Minister Creasy in the transport space department and entities. The conference, it was an idea born when we arrived in the department, and it's about integration. So we have been planning, and of course, being the inaugural one for the department and for ourselves, we had to make sure that we get things right. Now, the whole point is that you would have heard the President in his State of the Nation address. He positioned transport as the backbone of the economy and the attempts of development, job creation, and development that we are wanting to achieve through the medium-term development plan. And so it remains our outlook, therefore, that we need to pull all the stakeholders together. Many voices, one message, one commitment to say, and of course you would know that department, we've got 6 priorities, which are about logistics movement, 250 million tons on the Transnet network, 600 million passenger train movements, all this by the year 2030, reduction of road fatalities by the year 2030 by 50%, 1.2 million tons of air freight logistics. So we've got a very clear framework of what the ecosystem needs to achieve in order for us to meet the developmental input of the space. There's also an infrastructure build outlook, 21 billion rands into the AXA network. There's an increase of 1.5 billion rands into the public provincial roads maintenance grant, the work that Sandral is doing. We are taking roads from provinces, adding them onto the Sandral network as part of the strategic understanding that they are good for the economy, for tourism, for logistics and growth. And so the road to rail outlook that we have for logistics and passengers is important not just for South Africa but the region. So we've got our regional colleagues here, and was receiving some of them this morning from Tanzania, Mozambique, Botswana, and to have a collective discussion about not just South African